Chapter 150. At the elevator door on the 17th floor of the luxury apartment. Ozwa leaned against the wall, gritting her teeth in pain. She hadn't expected Song Qingshu's briefcase to have such a powerful magic weapon. Not only had it blocked her attack, but it had also doubled the force back at her. The backlash just now had directly broken two of her ribs and seemed to have a slight concussion. She felt dizzy. What kind of magic weapon is this? Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows and pinched the glowing long johns as he looked at Ozwa, shivering. It's long johns. Ozwa. Then, Song Qingshu glanced at the logo and immediately realized that this pair of long johns was actually made by Nokia. No wonder it was so hard. Do you think you can escape? Ozwa clutched her chest. A few years ago, there was a nascent soul cultivator at the same realm as you. He thought himself clever and tried to fake his death to seize a body again. But unfortunately, he was branded by the lord of the castle. As long as he was branded, the possession spell wouldn't be able to proceed smoothly. Once you enter Mo Immortal Castle, everyone will be branded. You can't escape. Song Qingshu frowned and lowered his head to look at the long johns in his hands. He had brought these long johns from that family's villa in the wilderness. At that time, his subordinate had been so scared by the owner's terrifying spiritual pressure that he had peed himself. So the kind owner had given him a pair of long johns for him to change into. After that, he had run into that great death-courting senior outside the villa. And in the end, he had also peed himself. Thus, the long johns had ended up in his hands. At that moment, Song Qingshu lowered his head in deep thought. He was surprised to find that the source of all his failures seemed to have started from that unremarkable little villa. Furthermore, that great death-courting senior had a close relationship with that family. Song Qingshu was increasingly convinced that the owner of this villa was no ordinary person. If even a pair of long johns could be refined into a magic weapon and burst forth with such astonishing power, then wouldn't stealing a kitchen knife from inside be able to split the world? Miss Ozwa, since you're already injured, I think it's better for you to hurry back and recuperate. We'll never meet again. Song Qingshu gripped the long johns tightly, then grabbed the briefcase with 5 small holes in it, and turned to head down the stairs. Even though Miss Ozwa was injured, Song Qingshu didn't think he could kill her. This was the lady of the castle's right-hand man. Who knew what kind of magic treasure the other party would take out? But just as Song Qingshu was about to open the door and wave goodbye, Miss Ozwa suddenly clutched her chest and slowly stood up from the ground. You want to run? At the crucial moment, Ozwa didn't hesitate to take out a multicolored stone the size of a cobblestone. Spirit energy surged out of the stone, and a force separated from it. Song Qingshu found that he couldn't move forward. Wuji stone. Song Qingshu recognized the stone at a glance. This Wuji stone is a magic treasure specially developed by the castle lord. You have the mark of the castle lord on you, so it's impossible for you to escape the punishment of the Wuji stone. I was worried that something might go wrong, so I borrowed it from the lady of the castle. Ozwa had never expected to use the Wuji stone to detain someone. In her opinion, dealing with this Song Qingshu would be a piece of cake. This Wuji stone was like a super strong magnet that firmly latched onto Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu did his best to resist this force, but he couldn't take another step forward. He was just a little bit away from the corridor. Just a little bit more. He would be able to escape this demoness grasp. On the other side, Ozwa took advantage of the Wuji stone's pull to slowly approach Song Qingshu's back. I told you can't escape. In the previous attack, the nails on Ozwa's right hand had been completely broken, but she still had her left hand. I don't know how you refine this magic treasure in the shape of long johns, but this time, I'll go all out. I'll use all my strength to send you to the netherworld. Ozwa wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Without the slightest bit of mercy, she endured the pain of her broken ribs and stretched out her claws to grab Song Qingshu. The nails on her left hand glowed with a faint golden light, and the strength of this grab was enough to pierce through Song Qingshu's skin. Although Song Qingshu really wanted to complain, this wasn't a king magic treasure in the shape of long johns at all. This was a real pair of long johns. But seeing the woman's merciless attack, Song Qingshu was also angry. Fuck. I'm not running anymore. He had thoroughly experienced the Wuji stone's power. As long as he had the Lord of the Castle's brand on him, he wouldn't be able to escape after taking out the Wuji stone. But this Wuji stone could only restrict his advance like a magnet, and couldn't truly lock him in place. Begging for mercy was useless, and running wasn't an option. Song Qingshu could only grit his teeth and look at the woman in front of him. He roared like a man, I'll fight you to the death. This time, Ozwa's strength was clearly much fiercer than before, and the strong wind carried destructive power. It was an ordinary claw strike without any magical embellishments, and all the glass on this floor was instantly shattered by the strong wind. Song Qingshu felt as if his face was no longer his own. There was a burning sensation of pain, and his skin was trembling like a ghost. And all he could do was raise his glowing long johns at this critical moment and shiver uncontrollably. Boom! There was a loud explosion on the 17th floor. Smoke and dust suddenly rose as Ozwa's claw struck the long johns with all her might. But this time, it only created a series of sparks instead. The strong toughness of the long johns caused the attack to rebound. Boom! Another loud sound rang out. The woman was sent flying by this force. Song Qingshu looked at the human-shaped hole in the 17th floor's wall, his heart still pounding with fear. After the chaotic battle, the dust seemed to have settled, and the entire 17th floor had suffered great destruction, as if it had been hit by the apocalypse. Luckily, there was only one resident on each floor of this luxury apartment. Otherwise, Song Qingshu really couldn't imagine how many innocent people would be affected. Downstairs. What are you yelling for? How uncultured. Everyone has to go to work tomorrow. I've already called the property management. Just you wait. The resident upstairs was a golden core cultivator, and he yelled at the top of his lungs. Song Qingshu snapped out of his daze and realized that it was time to escape. He hurriedly grabbed his briefcase and the protective long johns and fled down the stairs. On the other side, Ozwa, the killer's subordinate whom the lady of the castle had sent, had suffered a huge backlash and was sent flying a full kilometer out of the building by a blast of air. In the end, she turned into a shooting star and crashed into the green belt near the highway. Ozwa had died. Her ribs were broken, her hands were crushed, her fingernails were all broken, and she was bleeding profusely. But she wasn't dead, and was only in shock. That pair of long johns had been enchanted by Wang Ling, and it had survived 2 consecutive backlashes. Chapter 151. It was hard to imagine how ferocious a soul formation cultivator's strength must have been to directly go into shock after suffering 2 backlashes. In the evening, Director Li received another call from his leader. He would continue to deal with a patient who was on the Green Rescue Channel. On the way, Director Li's assistant was reporting the situation to him. How's the patient's condition now? Initial diagnosis is that it's shock caused by a concussion. Director Li was startled. How could it be another F***King concussion? Were cultivators' brains so fragile nowadays? What caused it? According to surveillance footage from Haixing Road, the Cultivation police station found that the patient fell from the sky and hit the green belt. The cause is still under investigation, the assistant replied. But initial diagnosis is that the patient's injuries have nothing to do with the fall, and her concussion had already formed before the fall. The Cultivation police station has sent Officer Wang, who is very experienced in criminal investigation. Based on his assessment, he believes that the real cause of the patient's injuries is related to the explosion in that high-end apartment building a kilometer away. Director Li nodded. I understand. I'm on my way there now. Follow up on the situation. And once you understand the cause of the patient's injuries, be sure to let me know right away. The city police station has given me another order to save this person's life at all costs. The assistant. Don't worry, Director. Officer Wang is very experienced, and he's doing his best to investigate the case. He's analyzing the cause of the case. Just now, he finished watching an entire season of Detective Conan. For some reason, Director Li wanted to cry but had no tears. Sure enough, studying medicine couldn't save a cultivator. At around 10 o'clock that night, a person who shouldn't have been there appeared outside the Wang family's small villa. Song Qingshu stood at the entrance of the villa with a briefcase with 5 holes in his left hand and a pair of long johns tightly clenched in his right hand. According to Song Qingshu's original plan, he should have taken a supersonic plane to Mishio Nation. But at the last moment, Song Qingshu realized that he had chickened out. He had fled Mo Immortal Castle in an attempt to break away from the organization, and had even seriously injured the lady's right-hand man Azwa. The lady would definitely mobilize all her forces to hunt him down and kill him. Song Qingshu felt that he had no way out. Even if he escaped abroad now, it was still very unsafe. What should I do? Song Qingshu pondered for a long time in the small garden downstairs of the apartment complex, quietly reviewing his life. He felt that everything he had done since he was young had not been smooth sailing. Once, he deliberately tricked people in a ranked match. In the end, he met a youth with explosive hand speed. That person called himself Yi Xiu, and used a hero to smash 5 people on the other side. He killed the other side more than 30 times in a row, and in the end the other side surrendered. Once again, he snatched a lollipop from a child at home, only to be beaten up instead. Not only did that child say that he was a disciple of Shaolin Temple, that he had learned Qigong from Qigong Master Wang Lin, and that he had learned the S-shaped snakeskin movement from the talk show actor Bobo. Another time, he peeped at a young lady bathing, and was almost caught and beaten into a muscle by her boyfriend. That person claimed to be the campus belle's personal expert, and that he had countless girlfriends, all of whom he King got along with. While Song Qingshu was thinking about life, the sirens of the Cultivation police car, and the fire department's rescue vehicle, accompanied by a dazzling red warning light, swaggered through the entrance of the residential area. In that moment, it was as if a drop of glycerin had been poured into Song Qingshu's brain, and he instantly figured it out. Now that things had come to this, he had nowhere to go. If he had to find a way out, the Wang family's small villa was his only way out. But what reason did he have to look for the seniors in this villa? Song Qingshu looked at the long johns in his hand, which had saved his life twice, and clenched his teeth. So now, he stood at the entrance of the Wang family's small villa. It was past 10 o'clock, but no one was asleep in the Wang family's small villa. Mother Wang was upstairs brushing up on her face and putting on a face mask, while Father Wang was still working hard for his readers in the study. Downstairs, the old man was watching a new large-scale ethical drama called Take Me Along, Old Driver. This drama told the story of a disabled but strong-willed retired driver who, in order to realize his dream of becoming a champion driver, took his 2 daughters racing on Mount Xiaoming, and in the end trained them to become champion drivers. The old man was lost in the drama when the villa's doorbell suddenly rang. He was old and a little hard of hearing, and only came back to his senses after the doorbell rang for a while. At the same time, Wang Ling, who was on the 2nd floor, also looked down. "Who is it?" With his hands behind his back, the old man strolled over unhurriedly. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a man standing at the entrance, looking a little down and out. Judging from his appearance, the man was already in his 30s. He looked a little haggard, had a scraggly beard, and looked a little slovenly. The old man narrowed his eyes. "You are?" Song Qingshu probed him with his spiritual senses, and found that the old man standing in front of him seemed to be just an ordinary old man without any spirit energy to speak of. Even so, Song Qingshu still didn't dare be the slightest bit negligent. What if the other party was deliberately hiding his strength? "Senior." He looked at the old man timidly, and after a moment, he finally took a deep breath. As if summoning up his courage, he looked at the old man in front of him, and held up the long johns with both hands. I'm here to return the long johns." Old man Wang was blank for a moment, and then realized that the long johns really did belong to him. This was because old Master Shun had bought these long johns from the textile market back then. During the mass sale, old Master Shun had bought dozens of them at once. He could tell at a glance that they were familiar to him. "They're my long johns." The old man nodded, then looked at Song Qingshu and asked, "Do you have a problem?" Even though it had been almost an hour since Ozwa's assassination attempt, Song Qingshu's hands were still trembling. He was a little speechless, and didn't know what to say. When all was said and done, The old man was an experienced veteran. When he was young, he had seen all kinds of people. He had also been a chef for decades and had seen all kinds of diners. Like a roundworm, the old man knew what those diners were thinking when they frowned. The old man could tell that Song Qingshu's real purpose wasn't as simple as returning the long johns. He probably had something else to ask of him. Furthermore, it was already so late, so it was obviously a little unusual for him to come knocking at this time. Chapter 152. Song Qingshu tiptoed through the door, feeling a little guilty. After all, in order to fight for the stone ghost mask a few times in the past, he had even sent his subordinates to forcefully snatch it from them. But now Song Qingshu had completely thought it through. The strength of this family was already not something he could go against. A pair of long johns had been able to send the lady of the castle's capable subordinate, Azwa, flying with a backlash on the spot. How terrifyingly strong was this senior, who could refine such a magic treasure? The old man poured Song Qingshu a glass of water, put it on the coffee table, and pushed it in front of him. Do you have anything to say? The old man had always been an easygoing person. His eyes would narrow into slits when he smiled in particular, making him look very benevolent. However, Song Qingshu didn't dare let down his guard in the Wang family's small villa. Although he hadn't sensed the slightest trace of spirit energy from the old man, there was a good saying. Those with squinting eyes were monsters. Who knew whether this great senior was testing him or not? And this glass of water, could he drink it? Should he drink it? Or was this a test from the senior? Song Qingshu stared at the glass of water, lost in endless thought. This scene was exactly the same as grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's expression at the dinner table back then, wondering whether he should eat the broccoli that Grandfather Wang had picked out for him or not. Song Qingshu realized that coming to the Wang family's small villa was a little bad. He kept feeling like someone was staring at him from behind. He didn't understand why this villa, which clearly looked ordinary and didn't even have a spirit array to decorate it, gave off such an oppressive feeling that came from the depths of one's soul. After 10 minutes of silence, Song Qingshu felt like a child who had been caught copying homework by the class teacher in the morning, and finally confessed everything in front of the old man. Because Song Qingshu talked a lot, he almost told the whole story to the old master. The old man was getting on in years, and couldn't react for a moment. After sorting out his thoughts with great effort, he replied unhurriedly, "Oh, you were the one who wanted to buy that mask in the first place? But that mask was taken away by Little Lei." Little Lei. Song Qingshu felt like his 3 views had been overturned. Nowadays, how many people would dare call that great death-courting senior that? Suddenly, Song Qingshu felt even more respect for Old Man Wang. Even if he carefully searched the old man's body, he still couldn't find any spiritual power. However, this old man was already a great senior in his heart. Moreover, Song Qingshu had no doubt that this old man was a living fossil-level figure. Because you didn't buy the mask for your boss, now your boss wants to kill you. Is that what you mean? The old man sighed. He felt that young people nowadays were too noisy. It was just a mask. It was not a big deal. It was all about fighting and killing. But the old man felt that he didn't have the ability to help Song Qingshu in this matter. After thinking for a bit, he stretched out his leg and lightly scraped Loopy Toad's little butt, intending to have Loopy Toad call Wang Ling down. Loopy Toad's rest had been disturbed, and it was a little grumpy. Song Qingshu glanced at the Akita with strange fur. He thought it was just a domesticated pet, but when it was kicked up by the old man, it glared at him angrily. Song Qingshu felt like he had seen this look somewhere before. This definitely wasn't an ordinary dog. For some reason, the moment he met the dog's eyes, Song Qingshu saw a demon king standing on top of a cliff, leading thousands of demons. The demon king stood there, his eyes sharp and full of vigor. With a flip of his hand, he could destroy heaven and earth. Song Qingshu was dazed. Was he imagining things? The old man. Our Wang Ling brought this dog back from school. The school leaders came and forbade us from raising it. But this little guy is very protective of its owner, and is very easy to raise. I see. Song Qingshu breathed a sigh of relief at the old man's explanation. May I ask, Senior, who is Wang Ling? Wang Ling is my grandson. My grandson is still in high school. Still in high school? Song Qingshu felt that his three views had been refreshed. What kind of family was this? Song Qingshu. Which high school is it? The old man. Number 60 high school. Song Qingshu. Under normal circumstances, the old man would get excited at the mention of his grandson. The pride and arrogance of the older generation toward their grandchildren was indescribable. But he couldn't say too much to Song Qingshu. The old man had never been willing to get involved in matters between cultivators. Being able to sit here and listen to Song Qingshu ramble on for so long was purely because the old man was displaying his humanitarian spirit as a resident committee grandpa. If it was a quarrel between a couple, the old man felt that he might be able to mediate on behalf of Bai Wanqing. But when it came to cultivation, the Wang family could only rely on Wang Ling. Actually, while he was still on the second floor, Wang Ling had already heard Song Qingshu complaining to the old man. He was now being hunted down by Mo Immortal Castle, and even if he escaped abroad, he might not be able to protect himself, so he could only come to the Wang family for help. Logically speaking, Wang Ling didn't want to get involved at all, but just as he was about to deal with it coldly, his damn eyelids started to twitch wildly again. It had been a long time since his eyelid gave him a warning. If he ignored this matter, the outcome would be even worse. After deep contemplation, Wang Ling slowly walked downstairs. He was still wearing big white bunny pajamas, and the soft adorable clothes and that unsmiling expressionless face formed a strong contrast. When Wang Ling went downstairs, the old man had already returned to his side to continue watching his drama, leaving Song Qingshu alone. Song Qingshu was a little nervous and a little confused. He didn't know why this great senior had pushed this matter onto his grandson, who was still in high school. But when he saw Wang Ling approach him in pajamas, which contrasted greatly with his appearance, Song Qingshu was completely stupefied. Because even if the person in front of him turned to ash, he would never, ever forget him. He was certain that this was the youngster in white who had appeared at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa, when he and the 10 saints had gone to fight over the stone ghost mask, and who had caused Great Saint and Second Saint to die from the backlash. Not only had this youngster killed Great Saint and Second Saint, he had also incited Third Saint to defect. The most important thing was that he had a very close relationship with grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. In any case, this youngster was the main culprit behind their current predicament. But Song Qingshu had never expected that after going around in a big circle, the person he had finally found to help would actually be this youngster. Song Qingshu felt really angry. But now, he was already at his wit's end. Apart from this youngster, no one could help him. On the side, Loopy Toad glanced at Song Qingshu and silently lowered its head. It then walked over to Song Qingshu and stretched out its paw to pat his leg comfortingly. Chapter 153. He called grenade-throwing Senior Immortal over from Wenxian Garden. Song Qingshu had come to ask for help. This matter needed to be considered at length. After receiving the message, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal immediately galloped over on sheep. It took him less than 5 minutes to get to the Wang family's house. After grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took sheep back, he entrusted one of his little brothers, who was good at upgrading immortal tools, to repair the car. When he had heard that Wang Ling was looking for him that night, he had seized the opportunity to return the tricycle. When he reached the entrance, grenade-throwing Senior Immortal saw that the main door of the Wang family's villa was slightly ajar. Wang Ling had opened it through the air. Then, Song Qingshu saw Great Death-courting Senior and a pink-haired loli wearing blue lace suspenders and shorts enter the door. The little loli looked like she was only 6 years old. Her hair was tied up in a bun, and she was wearing a gray windbreaker. Her big eyes blinked as she looked around. Song Qingshu's heart couldn't help jumping when he saw grenade-throwing Senior Immortal holding little loli's hand. He had never heard that this Great Death-courting Senior had a daughter. Where had this little loli come from? After entering, the first thing grenade-throwing Senior Immortal saw was Grandfather Wang watching a drama, which was the recently popular Take Me Old Driver. He did not dare to disturb the old man watching the drama, but at this moment, he had already decided that when he returned home today, he would carefully watch the drama from beginning to end. Who knows, He might be able to comprehend the mysteries of heaven. Yes, great seniors, every action has a purpose. Leading sheep in front of Wang Ling, grenade-throwing senior immortal was stunned when he saw Wang Ling's pajamas. Damn, Brother Ling, aren't you a little cute today? Then he cupped his fists in salute to Wang Ling, who was wearing big white bunny pajamas. Brother Ling, I've brought you sheep. Wang Ling stared at the little girl and raised his eyebrows. Grenade-throwing senior immortal rubbed Lolita's little head. Brother Ling, are you relieved now? Wang Ling cupped his chin in his hand and nodded. This already wasn't sheep's first time materializing. It was just that the last few times it had materialized, because of the rust and peeling paint on the tricycle, the clothes and accessories it had materialized had been too horrible to look at. Now that he had taken care of it again, it was indeed much better. Sheep pointed at grenade-throwing senior immortal, with a face full of excitement. This uncle found someone to help me paint, wax and lubricate it. It's very comfortable. Grenade-throwing senior immortal. Somehow, Wang Ling felt that there was something strange about this. After listening to Song Qingshu's explanation of what had happened, grenade-throwing senior immortal looked at him and laughed. It turns out you were the one who sent that bunch of people who fought us for the stone ghost mask back then. Now that he's been abandoned and is being hunted, he's come to us for help? If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? Song Qingshu sighed, and revealed an expression of great bitterness and hatred. Now that things have come to this, I have no way out. I can only seek help from the two seniors. If the two seniors can help me, I can help the two seniors get what they want. Tell me about it first. Grenade-throwing senior immortal leaned back on the sofa and hugged Sheep from behind. Sheep twisted her body with a look of disgust, struggling to free herself. I know that the seniors have been looking for information on the maker of the stone ghost mask, Song Qingshu said as he looked at Wang Ling and grenade-throwing senior immortal. Hearing this, Wang Ling and grenade-throwing senior immortal's eyes lit up. You have a lead. Song Qingshu nodded solemnly. Yes, this information had been given to him by Zhou Jia, the leader of Green Gang, and was more than 90% accurate. In fact, Song Qingshu knew that he was in no position to negotiate at all. Cultivators nowadays had all sorts of ways to extract memories, and given the strength of these two people, it would be as easy as turning over their hands to read his memories. But he wasn't stupid. Long before he had come to the Wang family's villa, he had sealed his memories with a curse. If the curse was forcibly removed, all his memories would disappear. Song Qingshu was well aware that this was his only bargaining chip. Even so, he still couldn't guarantee that this senior immortal didn't have any other way to pry into his memories. After all, this was a great senior who could transform a pair of long johns into a soul formation cultivator and cause him to suffer a backlash. You're smart to use a curse to seal your memories. Grenade-throwing senior immortal's eyes twinkled as he looked at Song Qingshu. This was the heavenly eye of a soul formation cultivator. Although it was far inferior to Wang Ling's, it wasn't hard for it to pick up some clues. But very quickly, grenade-throwing senior immortal frowned when he noticed a black stain on Song Qingshu's soul, and he exclaimed, "A soul brand?" Grenade-throwing senior immortal had seen a lot of soul brands. The more dangerous a brand was, the darker its color would be. For example, the soul brand on Song Qingshu's body had already F***** turned into a black fungus. Song Qingshu lowered his head and sighed. The lord of the castle plants a soul brand like this on everyone who works in Mo Immortal Castle. Grenade-throwing senior immortal cupped his chin in contemplation. There were actually a lot of ways to remove a soul brand. But Song Qingshu's brand was already too deep, and it was very difficult to remove it with ordinary methods. The Lord of the Castle brand on Song Qingshu's soul was like a time bomb. Not only was there a risk of its location being exposed, it was also extremely easy for the person to be remotely cursed. Brother Ling, do you have any way to remove the soul brand? Grenade-throwing senior immortal asked with a frown. Wang Ling nodded, then got up, and went to the bathroom on the first floor of the Wang family's small villa. He rummaged through a cupboard and took out a red bag. On the side, grenade-throwing senior immortal and Song Qingshu were stupefied when they saw this familiar packaging. Grenade-throwing senior immortal. Brother Ling, this is? Wang Ling opened the bag. The pure white granules in the bag glowed with a golden light and gave off the fragrance of honey locust. This was a bag of mystical washing powder which he had already blessed. At the same time, a woman approached outside the Wang family's small villa. She was wearing a cheongsam and a pair of red high heels. She had followed Song Qingshu's soul brand to this place. This is the place. Do you think the lord of the castle won't know if you hide here? The woman sneered. She had already smelled Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu, come out and die. I'm here on the lady's orders to avenge Azwa. The woman didn't move, but her furious voice pierced straight into the heart and was deafening. But unfortunately, there was no reply to this voice. Damn it! Song Qingshu, if you're willing to be a turtle and don't dare come out, this old lady will charge in. I swear, I'll kill everyone in this villa. The woman in the red cheongsam flew into a rage. Just as the woman was about to storm the villa and carry out her next move, the front door of the Wang family's small villa opened. Chapter 154. It was already close to midnight when Song Qingshu arrived at the Wang family's house to ask for help. To be honest, Mo Immortal Castle had arrived faster than Song Qingshu had expected. If he had arrived at the airport at this time, he would have been caught red-handed before he could even take off. Now Song Qingshu was a little glad that he had made the right choice. With Grenade-throwing senior immortal, and this senior white rabbit with an unfathomable realm, they would definitely be able to protect him. Song Qingshu had given Wang Ling the nickname, White Rabbit, on the spot. At that moment, the big quaint pendulum clock on the first floor of the Wang family's small villa had struck 10 times. And it was exactly midnight. Wang Ling came to the door in his pajamas. The woman in the red cheongsam at the door stopped hooting and looked at Wang Ling and Song Qingshu behind him as she said coldly, "Finally willing to come out? Miss Ayu, you shouldn't have come." Song Qingshu came out from behind Wang Ling. Perhaps it was because of Wang Ling and Grenade-throwing senior immortal's presence, but he was a lot more confident. "You seriously injured Azwa and tried to defect from Mo Immortal Castle. This is already a capital offense," Ayu roared. At the same time, the bones in her right hand cracked like a bundle of extremely tough beef tendons. They twisted at an incredible angle and finally started to spin at high speed like an electric drill. This woman had actually refined her right hand into a magic weapon. Song Qingshu was well aware that in terms of realm and overall qualities, this Ayu could definitely kill him in a second in every aspect. They weren't on the same level of realm, and it would be as easy as killing a chicken or a dog for her to crush someone with a lower realm. In a normal one-on-one fight, it was impossible to kill someone with a higher realm. But Song Qingshu wasn't the least bit nervous. He slowly got into position and stretched out his hand to wave at the other party. "Make your move." Compared with Azwa, this Miss Ayu's attack style was clearly more violent. The electric drill in her right hand was like a godly weapon that could split the heavens and the earth. Accompanied by a dazzling light, this Miss Ayu stood up and swooped down like a fierce dragon crossing the river, swiftly launching an attack. From Azwa's fingernails to Ayu's entire right hand, even Grenade-throwing senior immortal had never heard of this method of refining body parts into magic artifacts. This Ayu's attack was clearly more aggressive than Azwa's. While still in the air, her right hand curled up a vast expanse of lightning and came crashing down. In the face of this lightning-toxic dragon drill, Song Qingshu's response was nothing fancy. He just crossed his arms in front of him. He couldn't even see Ayu's path of attack. This was the embodiment of the gap between their realms. The woman's movements were simply too fast, and his eyesight couldn't capture them at all. In an instant, the two collided, and the surrounding airwaves roared as if they were galloping. The might of this lightning-toxic dragon drill was extraordinary. It struck Song Qingshu's crossed arms, and the enormous force directly caused the ground to shatter bit by bit. Song Qingshu's entire body was embedded into the ground like rivets. However, as the woman attacked, a golden light shone from Song Qingshu's arm. Boom! Then, the golden light on his arm exploded on the spot, and the woman's right hand was blown into a bloody mess. Her body was as light as a scarecrow as she was directly sent flying. She directly broke the thick old tree behind her and skidded along the ground for several hundred meters before she came to a stop. This scene was a little familiar. Azwa had been seriously injured by the backlash from this golden light. In contrast, apart from some dust, Song Qingshu wasn't injured in the slightest. Song Qingshu climbed out of the pit and shook off the dust on his body. He couldn't help turning his head to give Wang Ling a thumbs up and a grateful look in his eyes. "Senior, your long johns are so useful." Wang Ling. Ayu's cheongsam had already been torn to shreds, and she slowly crawled up from the ground barefoot on trembling legs. Her entire right arm was rotten, and the flesh and bone were almost in a state of disintegration, dripping with blood. It was only because of the woman's realm that she had the upper hand. Otherwise, under the same circumstances, an average cultivator wouldn't have been able to endure this kind of pain and would have passed out long ago. Song Qingshu walked briskly to the woman. They were hundreds of meters apart, but it took him less than a few milliseconds to reach her. Enduring the pain, Ayu glanced at Song Qingshu. "Given your realm, there's no way you could be this fast." "I used a magic treasure." Song Qingshu pointed to the ground and stuck out his big toe. Ayu was stunned to realize that it was actually a pair of flip-flops. "I came to ask Senior Wang for help before, and we had a good chat at his house. I didn't expect you to suddenly attack me, and I didn't even have time to change out of my slippers," Song Qingshu said. This lady of the castle's right-hand woman, Ayu, looked at this scene in disbelief. "Are you joking?" As Song Qingshu spoke, he took off his outer clothes to reveal a set of red long johns. "Look, these long johns are also from Senior's house. It was thanks to these two magic treasures that I was able to block your attack. Otherwise, I would have been dead long ago." Ayu couldn't accept this outcome at all, and she directly spat out a mouthful of blood. What kind of joke was this? Senior Wang is kind and generous, and doesn't want to cause trouble. But you've disturbed his rest time and again. Go back and tell the Lord that Senior Wang has already agreed to protect me, and tell him to be careful. If he wants to live a few more years, it's best if he doesn't cause trouble, Song Qingshu said in a low voice. Wang Ling felt that after Ajwa, he had been blackmailed again. "You actually dare threaten the Lord? Let me tell you, I'm already mentally prepared to come here today. Even if I can't go back, I'll kill you." The woman stared at Song Qingshu malevolently, but very quickly, she had a panicked expression on her face. "What's going on? Why can't I sense your soul brand? Do you want to use the power of a curse to kill me?" Song Qingshu smiled slightly. "Unfortunately, before you arrived, Senior Wang had already helped me wash it off with detergent." "Detergent?" Ayu was dumbfounded. Logically speaking, the soul brand that the Lord had left on Song Qingshu was already irremovable. What the hell was this detergent? Could it really remove 99 kinds of stains? What a scam. "Do you have any last words?" Song Qingshu asked. "Do you know that you're in big trouble now? Azwa and I might be working for the lady, but we were hired by her. We don't really belong to Immortal Castle, but Immortal Mansion. If you dare do this, Immortal Mansion won't let you off." The woman sneered as she stared at Song Qingshu. "Besides, although I'm injured, as long as those two don't make a move, do you think you, a nascent soul cultivator, can kill me? Immortal Mansion?" Hearing this, Wang Ling's and grenade-throwing senior immortal's pupils contracted slightly. "Is that what you want to say?" But Song Qingshu didn't care at all. After being hunted down by Immortal Castle for so long, he had been on edge for so long now, he was enjoying the thrill of a counterattack. As he spoke, a toothpick appeared in his hand, which he had just brought out of the Wang family's small villa. Saying that, the toothpick flew out with spirit energy and directly pierced the woman's forehead. The woman died with everlasting regret. The skull of a soul formation cultivator was so hard that it didn't fear worldly objects at all. The woman had never expected that in the end, she would actually die because of a toothpick. The spirit energy attached to the toothpick exploded in the woman's head, and this tiny toothpick directly blasted a bloody hole the size of a fist in her forehead. Chapter 155. Everything came to an end for the time being. After Ayu's death, Song Qingshu finally had some breathing room for the following period of time. But the truth was that Mo Immortal Castle's revenge had just begun. Song Qingshu was well aware that the lady of the castle wouldn't let him off so easily after he had severely injured Azwa and killed Ayu. Stronger killers might appear at any time in the future, but Song Qingshu already had nothing to fear. After all, he was a man with long johns. Furthermore, the soul brand on his body had already been washed away by Senior Wang's mystical washing powder. From now on, it wouldn't be as easy for Mo Immortal Castle to find him. Since I was a child, I've never succeeded in doing anything bad. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have helped the wicked. Song Qingshu sighed in his heart as he took out a bottle of purple liquid. It was a bottle of body-dissolving liquid. Song Qingshu poured the whole bottle over Ayu's body. A pungent stench wafted over as the tattered red qipao on Ayu's body started to corrode. This qipao was originally a protective immortal treasure, but it still couldn't withstand the powerful corrosive power of the body-dissolving liquid. However, the power of this bottle of body-dissolving liquid was also limited. It only corroded the qipao, while the body remained intact. Song Qingshu was bewildered. This body-dissolving liquid could instantly melt the body of a nascent soul cultivator, but it had no effect on a soul formation cultivator. Sure enough, the gap between the nascent soul stage and the soul formation stage was just too big. Song Qingshu thought that he had been stuck at this realm for a long time, and he couldn't help feeling sad. Is there any more body-dissolving liquid? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked. Song Qingshu took out another bottle from his pocket. There's only one bottle left. Give it to me. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took the bottle, opened the cap, and sprinkled a little white granular powder into it before shaking it evenly. Song Qingshu's face was full of amazement. Senior, may I ask, what is this powder? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Of course it's mystical washing powder from your Senior Wang's family. Song Qingshu. After the detergent had completely dissolved in the body-dissolving fluid, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal poured the fluid over the body again. This time, the woman's body directly turned into steam and started to evaporate quickly. Furthermore, after the detergent dissolved in the body-dissolving fluid, the pungent stench actually disappeared, and instead, there was a pungent fragrance of soap. Song Qingshu couldn't help giving Wang Ling a thumbs up. Senior White Rabbit King was really a god. Senior Wang, may I ask if your toilet cleaner spirit has the same effect? Could dichlorvos poison soul formation cultivators to death? Wang Ling. The three of them guarded Ayu's corpse, waiting for it to completely disappear. At the same time, along with a few flashes of light, a few objects appeared beside the corpse. These things had originally been hidden in Ayu's ear-shaped storage space. After the body-dissolving fluid had corroded the storage space, the things in the space had been scattered around the corpse like equipment dropped in a game. Perhaps because it was a temporary assassination mission, the woman did not bring much with her. Among them was a strangely shaped black weapon. It looked like a magic sword with a hilt, but the blade was very strange. It was made up of 7 black beads strung together. Song Qingshu was stupefied as he held up this black magic sword. Are female cultivators at the soul formation stage nowadays also so insatiable that they actually carry vibrators on them? Wang Ling, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, recognized this object. This is the 7-star sword. 7-star sword? I've read about it in ancient books. This is a first-class holy weapon, one of the 3 great magic treasures used by immortal Zhenyuan back then. The other 2 are the purple gold gourd and the golden canopy rope. I never thought it would actually be on this person, said Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Immortal Zhenyuan. Song Qingshu couldn't help shrinking his neck when he heard this name. This was a legendary figure from the same era as the legendary Devil Emperor Guapai. Furthermore, in the earliest days, when the gate between worlds had descended on Earth and a large number of demons had invaded, it was Immortal Zhenyuan who had been the first to find a way to close the gate between worlds. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal cupped his chin and said thoughtfully, legend has it that this 7-star sword has the power to move mountains and can mobilize the power of the earth for its own use. Song Qingshu. Then why isn't she using it? A first-class holy weapon is already extraordinary. Generally speaking, a soul formation cultivator can only use a fourth or fifth-class holy weapon, Grenade-throwing senior immortal said. Grenade-throwing senior immortal said, "It's worth investigating why this 7-star sword appeared in this woman's possession." As they spoke, their gazes swept over the objects that had exploded on the ground. In addition to the 7-star sword, there were some elixirs of unknown uses, and a bottle of purple liquid scattered around. That purple liquid was the body-dissolving liquid. According to the woman's original plan, she had obviously been to directly destroy Song Qingshu's corpse after dealing with him. Unfortunately, the woman had never expected this to be the final outcome. Scanning the area, it seemed that she didn't find anything else of value. Grenade-throwing senior immortal withdrew his gaze disinterestedly, then picked up the 7-star sword to examine it carefully. Only the 7-star sword could be considered an unexpected gain. After asking for Wang Ling's opinion, Grenade-throwing senior immortal unceremoniously put it into his pocket. Wang Ling didn't care about a mere first-class holy weapon at all. His body had long since become a sage, and there was almost no magic weapon in the world that could harm him with this body alone. But among the objects scattered on the ground, there was still one that Song Qingshu and Grenade-throwing senior immortal had overlooked, and which caught Wang Ling's attention. Wang Ling crooked his finger, and that thing directly flew into his palm. It was a palm-sized bronze plate which was very thin, and only as thick as a 1 yuan coin. A lotus flower was carved on it, and Wang Ling thought that this probably represented some sort of identity or organization that the woman truly belonged to. He recalled the woman's clamor that she was from Immortal Mansion. Was this an Immortal Mansion token? Wang Ling didn't dare be 100% sure. Unfortunately, the woman was already dead. Song Qingshu had been a little ruthless in directly blowing up her brain. Otherwise, Wang Ling would have been able to use the memory exploration spell to look for clues. Song Qingshu stared blankly at the bronze plate in Wang Ling's hand, then looked at the two of them and asked, "Seniors, do you know what kind of organization Immortal Mansion is?" Wang Ling frowned. His intuition told him that this organization wasn't simple. Furthermore, his sixth sense had always been very accurate. "I think I've heard of this organization somewhere before, but I think that the 7-star sword in this woman's hand is most likely inextricably linked to this organization." Grenade-throwing senior immortal narrowed his eyes. "I'll get to the bottom of this. But before that, I want to ask Brother Ling." "Wang Ling? ? Do you still have any long johns? Hurry up and give this brother 2 sets. Chapter 156. It was June 2nd on Wednesday in the 6th week of the semester. After last night's commotion, Wang Ling had thought about a lot of things. Song Qingshu had used the premise of providing clues about the maker of the stone ghost mask to forcefully suck up to Wang Ling. Wang Ling didn't dislike this kind of behavior, since he always felt that it would be very troublesome. In fact, he had also refused at the beginning, but his eyelid kept warning him that if he didn't do anything about it, it would lead to even more trouble. So in the end he had no other choice. Whether he accepted it or not, both sides were troublesome. In the same situation, Wang Ling's only choice was to cut his losses, to prevent the situation from worsening. And then there was this Immortal Mansion. Wang Ling had very limited knowledge about the forces in the cultivation world, because he didn't care about these trivial matters at all. He had heard a lot about the distribution of forces from Grenade-throwing senior immortal. Currently, the forces in the cultivation world could be roughly divided into 2 factions, light and dark. The light forces all had business licenses. In addition to accepting disciples and collecting tuition fees, these forces also had independent spirit herb cultivation bases to support their self-sufficiency and profit. Of course, the light forces were under the unified supervision and jurisdiction of Huaxia's government, and the sects were open and transparent about their power situations. The disciples they accepted were all itinerant cultivators, with at least 100 years of cultivation after completing state-mandated quality education. They wouldn't come into conflict with the basic government education department. The other big dark force, to put it in one sentence, was a sect that operated without a license. Huaxiao Nation's attitude toward this type of force had always been to punish them severely. As the owner of the Cultivation Forum and the Cultivation Chat Group, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had connections with all the light forces. He was well aware of the distribution of forces. If there was a force he hadn't heard of, it had to be one of the dark forces. Azwa and Ayu had been hired by the lady of the castle as mercenaries. So for Immortal Mansion, these two people might not be key existences in the interlocking chain of forces. However, these two people had both reached the soul formation stage. Furthermore, they could refine a part of their bodies into magic treasures. It could only be said that as a dark force operating without a license, the power behind Immortal Mansion was indeed intriguing. After dealing with the woman's scattered belongings, Song Qingshu followed Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal to Wenxian Garden. He would be assisting Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal in investigating the incident. After Third Saint, he became the second person in Mo Immortal Castle to turn traitor. After the two of them left, Wang Ling looked at the time. It was already almost 3 in the morning, and he still had several exam papers to finish. The most painful thing was that all the exercise questions on this paper were beyond the syllabus. He had to spend 5 or 6 minutes previewing in advance before he could get these two gremlins, pen and eraser, to help him with his homework. As a 16-year-old baby, Wang Ling's heart was really tired. When Wang Ling returned to class early in the morning, for the first time, no one had copied homework this morning. Even Super Chen and Dopey Gua, these two nerdy shut-ins who played games together at night, had handed in their homework on time. Given his understanding of the two of them over this period of time, there had to be something wrong with them suddenly becoming so ambitious. He read their memories and sure enough learned a few things. Lotus Sun hadn't come to school today. The reason was that in the middle of the month, the grade 1 students of number 60 high school would collectively participate in military training. When number 59 high school heard that there would be military training, the two headmasters had decided to simply schedule the military training together, and in passing, promote the friendship between the two schools. Thus, Lotus Sun had been temporarily assigned to number 59 high school and integrated into the lives of the two schools ahead of time. In exchange, number 59 high school would also send a student to number 60 high school as an exchange student to experience the cultural differences between the two schools. This was the result of the headmasters of the two schools acting on their own. They hadn't informed anyone in advance, and had only given notice at the teachers' morning meeting yesterday. So most of the students were kept in the dark. But as the class representative, Dopey Gua often went in and out of the teachers' offices. So he was the first to understand the situation. This was also the reason why the two of them hadn't copied homework in the morning, because they had heard that the exchange student from number 59 high school was also the school belle. If the school belle saw them copying homework, that would be too humiliating. I wonder who number 59 high school will send. Super Chun cupped his chin in his hands as he stared at the classroom door, waiting for the figure of his imagination to appear. Number 59 high school also had a lot of school bells. Although they weren't as magnetic and lethal as Lotus Sun's, their looks were passable. After spending so much time with Lotus Sun, the boys in grade 1, class 3 were actually vaguely tired of looking at her. The most important thing was that Lotus Sun was really too far away from them. She was a girl who was impossible to pursue. In contrast, the commoner school belle from No. 59 high school might be more to the boys' taste. It wasn't long before Teacher Pan's footsteps could be heard in the corridor. She's here, she's here. Dopeygua's pupils contracted slightly. From a distance, he could sense two auras hovering around Teacher Pan. Were there 2 exchange students? Teacher Pan paused at the classroom door and turned around to say to the 2 students who had been sent for the exchange, "Students, don't be nervous. Our students in grade 1, class 3 are very enthusiastic. I hope that you'll gain something from number 60 high school before the military training." After saying that, Teacher Pan walked straight through the door. Following that, 2 students from number 59 high school followed Teacher Pan's footsteps into grade 1. Class 3 Super Chun and Dopey Gua almost flipped the table when they saw this. They were actually 2 boys. F asterisk asterisk K. We used number 60 high school's top school bell in exchange. How did we get these two things in return? Speaking of which, these two boys could actually be considered old acquaintances of number 60 high school, and even had a history with Wang Ling. Standing on the dais, Teacher Pan cheerfully introduced the two students from number 59 high school. Students, let me introduce you. The one on the left is He Bufeng's classmate. The one on the right is classmate Tang Jingza. Everyone, give him a round of applause. Clap, 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 clap. After a symbolic round of applause, Dopigwa couldn't help asking, Teacher Pan, these two students don't seem to be grade 1 students. Is this really okay? It's like this. Classmate He Bufeng didn't participate in the school's military training for personal reasons. So this time, he'll be participating in the military training with the grade 1 freshmen. As for classmate Tang Jingza, Teacher Pan pushed up her glasses. Number 59 high school thinks that we should send classmate Lotus Sunday headmaster Jean. Doesn't think it's good to just send classmate He Bufeng as an exchange student. So he also sent classmate Tang Jingza. Grade 1, class 3 was dead silent. Because according to Teacher Pan, this guy was a freebie. Wang Ling. What freaking freebie? Classmate Tang Jingza's grades are very good. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask him. Teacher Pan cleared her throat and thought about what she was going to say next, and her old face actually flushed a little. In addition, classmate He Bufeng's family runs an andrology hospital, and he also brought a gift when he came to our number 60 high school for the exchange this time. For the next 6 months, all boys can enjoy a 50% discount on circumcision services at the hospital run by classmate He Bufeng's family with their student IDs. What about the girls? Feather Lin raised her hand and asked. Teacher Pan, hair removal. Chapter 157. In the heart of the city, there was a rather majestic building. The office of the lady, the secretary of the Lord of Mo Immortal Castle, was on the top floor, and through the huge floor-to-ceiling windows, one could completely overlook the city. Especially at night, the splendid lights of the city's heart made one feel nostalgic. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. A woman wearing a hairpin and black traditional clothes stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, her eyes a little vacant and her brows tightly furrowed. As soon as she arrived at the office, the lady received bad news. Her subordinate Ayu's life signal had disappeared. Everyone who worked in Mo Immortal Castle had the Lord's soul brand on them, which could be combined with a special life detector to monitor them. If it suddenly disappeared, it meant one of two things. Either the soul brand had been washed away, or they were already dead. The Lady of Castle was very clear about Ayu's plan. She had also single-handedly planned and arranged for Ayu to go out and take revenge on Song Qingshu this time. However, Song Qingshu and Ayu's soul brands had unexpectedly disappeared. For the sake of a mere Song Qingshu, she had actually lost 2 of her beloved generals. The Lady of Castle found this a little hard to accept. Furthermore, she couldn't guarantee that Song Qingshu was truly dead. Although the life detector showed that Song Qingshu's soul brand had indeed disappeared, she couldn't rule out the possibility that this guy might have found a way to wash it away. While she was pondering this, the originally transparent floor-to-ceiling windows were shrouded in a layer of haze. Looking at the black shadow reflected in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the lady's eyes twitched, and she bowed a little fearfully. "Greetings, Lord." The black shadow's voice seemed to come from an ethereal void as it echoed heavily. "My venerable self saw that Song Qingshu's soul brand had disappeared. Is he already dead?" The lady lowered her head and replied in a low voice. "This still needs to be investigated. This time, for the sake of a mere pawn, we actually lost 2 generals. You must reflect." "Yes, Lord." The lady cupped her fists at the black shadow. "This subordinate will definitely find out the truth as soon as possible, and will immediately lead people to investigate. If Song Qingshu is really dead, we will definitely be able to find traces of body-dissolving fluid at the coordinates where the life detector disappeared. Actually, my venerable self has always suspected that this person has someone behind him. The deaths of the great sage and second sage, as well as the betrayal of the third sage, are a warning to us. You must be extremely careful this time. At this point, our immortal castle can no longer tolerate any mistakes. Don't worry, Lord. Even if Song Qingshu has someone backing him, given our immortal castle's current foundation, no one can shake us. Given Lord's strength, as long as you can find that stone ghost mask, it will only be a matter of time before you dominate the world. The castle lord nodded. Yes, we must investigate the matter regarding the stone ghost mask as soon as possible. At this moment, the shadow of the castle lord on the floor-to-ceiling window suddenly flickered. Then a cry of "Ah!" came from the void. Then, without saying a word, the shadow on the floor-to-ceiling window dissipated into nothingness. The lady was stupefied. Could it be that the castle lord was attacked? Castle lord? Castle lord? The bodyguard tried calling out twice. About 10 seconds later, the black shadow reappeared on the floor-to-ceiling window, and the voice of the lord of the castle came from the void again. I'm fine. There was an accident just now. My long-range projector ran out of power. That new guy forgot to charge it for me last night, and he even spilled his coffee on my pants. Luckily, my pants are waterproof. The lady. Given the relationship between number 59 High School's headmaster Jean and number 60 High School's headmaster Chun, number 59 High School and number 60 High School were actually quite close. It was just that in recent years, the students have been competing with each other more seriously. But after the last Spirit Sword Exchange meet, the relationship between the two schools had improved a lot. Meeting He Buffing and Tang Jingza for the second time gave Wang Ling a very mystical feeling. Back then, at number 59 High School, one of them was a delinquent senior, whose name made people tremble with fear, and the other was the president of the student union, who liked to find fault with others and compare himself with others. But both of them had ended up the same way. After the 4-day Spirit Sword Exchange meet, both of them had lost their temper. Thus, they had embarked on the path of studying hard and making progress every day, adhering to the core values of cultivation. The first two classes this morning were still Teacher Pan's Tao Talismans class. The teaching progress of the two schools was actually about the same. He Buffing had no pressure at all to learn, and there was no need to mention Tang Jingza, who was an old senior who was about to graduate. He knew the high school curriculum like the back of his hand. After studying for the past few weeks, I believe that everyone already has a corresponding understanding of the 4 major spirit talismans. Among the functional spirit talismans, the spirit guiding talisman, this is the focus of our midterm exam. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the application of expanded functions of spirit talismans. At this point, everyone basically understood that Teacher Pan was going to start her daily lessons that went beyond the syllabus again. The spirit talisman I'm going to talk to you about today is the meditation talisman. Hearing this, Wang Ling couldn't help raising his eyebrows. This was a spirit talisman with an extremely high degree of difficulty. Through meditation, one could project it into the void and see some revelations about the future. But because it was very difficult, the success rate was extremely low. After mixing cinnabar with spirit water, Teacher Pan unfolded the yellow talisman and began a preliminary demonstration. She focused her spirit energy on the writing brush and frowned as she carefully wrote on the yellow talisman to ensure that there were no mistakes in the seal. The slightest mistake could directly cause the creation of the meditation talisman to fail. After about 3 minutes, Teacher Pan put away the brush and injected spirit energy into the yellow talisman. Everyone looked carefully. A moment later, the yellow talisman fluttered in the air. It was a dress that looked a little gorgeous. It was a little out of place with Teacher Pan's serious and old-fashioned style. Teacher Pan pushed up her glasses. This is a Dharma dress that I bought on a certain Taobao a few days ago. Although Teacher Pan's demonstration had been successful, even Teacher Pan herself wasn't clear on what this brightly colored dress symbolized, and what kind of story would happen around it in the future. The meditation talisman could reveal key objects in the future, but as for what these key objects represented, one would have to use one's imagination to guess. Teacher Pan then gave everyone a set of talisman-making tools. Now students, try out the steps just now. The classroom exploded once again. The The seal on the meditation talisman was intricate and complicated, and it was a huge test of wrist strength to write it. The slightest difference in thickness could lead to failure. Even Tang Jingze, an old senior from number 59 high school, had to use up several yellow talismans, and he couldn't help frowning. This was too difficult. But just as he was trying it out by accident, the yellow talisman on Dopigua's desk suddenly buzzed and burst forth with light. Master of Dopey stared at the floating yellow talisman in disbelief. Did it work? Everyone's gazes followed the direction of the sky, and a moment later, a shadow was projected. What's that? Feather Lin looked curiously at the thing that had been projected from the sky. It looked very much like a fungus, with mushroom heads on both sides. On the top was something shaped like a mouth, and below it was a small hole which looked very smooth. When the boys around them saw this thing, they were directly stupefied. Master of Dopey coughed. Do you know the Taisui fungus? This thing is our family's ancestral meatlingji mushroom. Chapter 158. The difficulty of creating a meditation talisman was very high. Apart from Master of Dopey, who had managed to draw it by accident, everyone else's attempts ended in failure. Of course, Wang Ling was just pretending. He had deliberately made a mistake at the last step of writing the seal. Most people had failed, so it was even more impossible for him to stand out at a time like this, since it would really draw too much attention. In fact, the seal Wang Ling had drawn on the yellow paper was much more accurate than Teacher Pan's. But for Wang Ling, it was just for fun. The meditation talisman wasn't very useful for him. It could also serve as an early warning of disaster, but his eyelids were more intuitive, overall. Apart from Master of Dopey's wretched interlude, this Dao talisman's lesson could be considered quite harmonious. Dopigua had managed to complete the meditation talisman by accident. Even he himself didn't know why such a large meatlingji mushroom had appeared in the air. The scene turned awkward for a moment. Dopigua could only smile apologetically, in an attempt to relieve the pressure in the atmosphere. But Teacher Pan was in the end Teacher Pan. As number 60 high school's top teacher, and a teaching pioneer that the students were proud of, she had recognized the meatlingji mushroom at one glance. Teacher Pan frowned as she suddenly recalled that student Dopigua was often absent-minded in class. His eyes glazed over, and his thoughts distracted. Sometimes, when she patrolled the back window of the classroom, she would even see this student Dopey sleeping on the table. This was clearly the syndrome of using too much meatlingji mushroom. Now, even the meditation talisman had reflected this thing, which was enough to prove the lethality of this meatlingji mushroom for youngsters. How could the flowers of the motherland indulge in such a strange place? Thus, there was no point in smiling apologetically or chatting awkwardly. Teacher Pan directly called Dopigua's parents over to discuss the meatlingji mushroom. This was really quite embarrassing. After class, Dopigua, who had returned from Teacher Pan's office, slumped over the table with a lifeless expression on his face. At the same time, he wailed in his heart, "My illustrious reputation. It was actually ruined, just like that." Superchin couldn't help patting Dopigua's shoulder. "Brother Gua, we're all men, we all know this actually, it doesn't matter. Our class is very united. We definitely won't tell the other classes about this. At least it's a good ending." Little Peanut also comforted him. Master of Dopey's tears welled up in the corners of his eyes, and he simply wanted to cry. "What's so good about that? My parents were called." "Little Peanut, when I was delivering homework to the teacher just now, I heard the teachers in the office talking about your dad." Master of Dopey. "My dad?" "Little Peanut, they're discussing whether your dad is a botanist." Master of Dopey. In the blink of an eye, it was noon. The atmosphere in the class seemed to be slightly heavy, causing He Buffing and Tang Jingze to feel very embarrassed. They didn't understand what exactly was going on. After asking around carefully, she found out that Mother Wan was coming to deliver food today. Every time they thought of Mother Wan's love bento filled with a strong dark wind, everyone couldn't help trembling. Doesn't Mother Wan usually only make bento on Fridays? How come today? Superchin asked. Mother Wan heard that there will be 2 students from number 59 high school today. so she decided to make bento in advance. They'll be delivered to class later. Little Peanut replied weakly. He Buffing and Tang Jingza were touched when they heard this. They had long heard about number 60 High's hospitality. And sure enough, this kitchen lady was too considerate. Not only did she specially make bento, she would also specially deliver it to the classroom. In contrast, their number 59 high school's attitude toward number 60 high school back then was simply too much. He Buffing and Tang Jingza felt deeply ashamed in their hearts. Wang Ling. These two people clearly still didn't realize the seriousness of the problem. At number 60 high school, even Wang Ling couldn't deny that Mother Wan was an extraordinary woman in the world of cooking. He always felt that her identity wasn't simple, and that she had students all over the world. Wang Ling had already seen the shadow of Mother Wan's cuisine in too many places, the most famous of which was the heavenly silkworm potato strips. This was also the impression that most people had of Mother Wan's current signature dish, since she had waved goodbye to the era of big pot dishes and turned to researching new cuisines. This heavenly silkworm potato strips was probably her dish with the highest score to date. Wang Ling had also seen a campus celebrity interview with Mother Wan in the school magazine last time. At the end of the interview, Mother Wan had generously shared her experience in making the heavenly silkworm potato strips. That was, don't ever lose the potatoes while stir-frying them. If the potatoes went into another wok while stir-frying them, they would change flavor. It was close to 12 o'clock when there was the sound of a cart being pushed at the originally quiet entrance to Grade 1 Class 3. The wheels of the cart rolled over the ground with a rumbling sound. It was Mother Wan pushing the cart over. Mother Wan pushed open the classroom door. She was still wearing a pale yellow apron and a snow-white chef's uniform, and her slightly plump figure was unadorned. When she smiled, there were faint crow's feet at the corners of her eyes. Everyone must have been waiting. It's time to eat. After saying this, light flowed out of her hands, and the delicately wrapped lunchboxes on the cart were immediately distributed into the hands of every student. Mother Wan put her hands on her hips in a domineering manner. In order to welcome two students from number 59 high school today, our love lunchboxes were specially made. Even the menu has been changed. Mother Wan knew that the relationship between the students of number 60 high school and number 59 high school was actually very tense, so it could be said that she had racked her brains for the love lunchboxes today. In the end, she finally had an idea. Except for Tang Jingza and He Bufeng, everyone else in Grade 1, Class 3 sucked in a breath of cold air. Damn. Even the fixed dish in the love lunchboxes, the heavenly silkworm potato strips, had been changed. This time, it was really Gigi. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, and then opened the lunchboxes. The first thing they saw was stir-fried green peppers with mushrooms, which were still giving off steam. However, the mushrooms were a little strange, and looked a little like horses. After taking a bite, Superchin already couldn't stand the earthy taste in his mouth, and he couldn't help picking it up and asking, "Mother Wan, what is this?" Mother Wan quickly replied, "This is a kind of fungus. It's very nutritious. Its scientific name is horse antler. Do you see the two halves of the skin on the side?" Superchin nodded. Mother Wan explained slowly. "This skin is called a pine stinger, and it's a jellyfish that lives on sea pine. When I went to the frozen sea before, I directly jumped into the water to catch it, so it's still fresh. If you eat the pine stinger and horse antler together, you'll have the power to forgive. I hope that after eating these two dishes, you'll be able to live more harmonious and happy lives." Little Peanut. "Then this soup." Mother Wan. This is white lily soup, or white lily soup for short." Chapter 159. It was June 2nd on Thursday, in the 6th week of the semester. That morning, Loopy Toad took out its little notebook from under the bed in Wang Ling's room. It continued to write down its human observation plan. It had already been several months since it had completely accepted the reality of its dog body. Loopy Toad now had a pretty good grasp of human language. Even when it used its dog paws to write, its handwriting was very neat. Loopy Toad felt that as long as it died again, given its current handwriting, it would definitely win its reputation in life and in death. As a cultured dog, Loopy Toad felt that its current level of literacy was already close to that of a human university student. It could be called a top student among dogs. Since learning to write an observation diary, Loopy Toad had also recorded a lot of things big and small. In addition to observations on humans themselves, this diary also contained observations on certain events. From the vicious incident of Mother Wong being groped, Loopy Toad had discovered the formidable power of the human internet. The rapidly developing internet era enabled humans to quickly take sides online, and then use the Water Army Commander-in-Chief to summon 100,000 water armies to attack or defend a certain opinion. Thus, Loopy Toad felt that there was a reason why the demon race had failed to break into the human world through the gate between worlds all those years ago. Human information technology was really too advanced. It was like this online, and it was also like this in reality, especially when it came to resisting the invasion of the gate between worlds. There wasn't a single phone call that couldn't be handled. Send a shared coordinate, and a capable cultivator nearby would immediately hear the news and rush over. In contrast, the demon race was still using the most primitive method of sensing to gather their strength, and had already lost at the starting line. All in all, the demon race still had a lot to learn. Loopy Toad now also knew how to operate a phone and an intelligent wristwatch, which was really too convenient. In contrast, the demon world was actually still using spirit talismans to send messages, which was really too lowly. After writing in the diary, Loopy Toad closed the notebook and put it back under the bed. It then opened the window on the second floor and jumped down to the villa. Today's weather forecast for Shanghai City had changed again. It wasn't as hot and stuffy as the TV had said. On the contrary, when the gentle breeze and the sun shone on Loopy Toad's green dog fur, Loopy Toad even felt refreshed. But without Wong Ling by its side, Loopy Toad felt like something was missing in its heart. It stared blankly at the end of East Huang Road, looking a little lonely. Although Little Master Ling usually didn't like to talk, Loopy Toad had a basic understanding of Little Master Ling's character after spending so much time together. The key was to be honest with Little Master Ling. Wong Ling didn't like to stir up trouble, and he didn't like it when people kowtowed to him. If Little Master Ling was compared to a cat, it was best to go along with its fur. If you went against its fur and tried to cause trouble, it would most likely explode in anger. When it had first arrived at the Wong family, Loopy Toad had always been a little scared, but now that it had known them for a long time, it gradually relaxed. Sometimes, he would even help it stroke its fur in his spare time. Although Loopy Toad had turned into a dog, its cultivation hadn't been delayed. It was trying to think of a way to use this body to return to its prime, and Wong Ling's help to stroke its fur was actually very helpful. A big shot at the level of an immortal king personally stroking its fur. What kind of treatment was this? Furthermore, Wong Ling's stroking had the effect of dredging the meridians and stimulating the acupuncture points. After being stroked a few times, Loopy Toad felt that its waist wasn't sore, and its legs didn't hurt anymore, and it even had more energy to cultivate. Standing in the courtyard outside the villa, Loopy Toad used the Demon King Heart Sutra that it was familiar with, which Wong Ling had already modified. To use the Demon King Heart Sutra, the source of demon chi was needed, but in the human world, the source of demon chi didn't exist. So Wong Ling had helped Loopy Toad replace the source of demon chi in the Demon King Heart Sutra with the source of spirit chi. When Loopy Toad used the technique at that moment, it could feel spirit chi flowing into its celestial aperture and overflowing. It felt like the Tao of nature. Loopy Toad had never experienced this wonderful feeling before. Loopy Toad's body was now much stronger than before. It was already comparable to a nascent soul cultivator, and an average golden core cultivator wouldn't be able to do anything to it. It was a demon king, an outstanding figure in the demon race. Back then, a demon king had been able to fight 5 soul formation cultivators. Standing under the sun, Loopy Toad opened its pitch-black eyes, which glowed with an azure blue light. It could feel its demon king soul gradually being restored. At the same time, its keen sense of smell picked up on the scent of a stranger. Keeping its gaze fixed in one direction, It sensed signs of a stranger in the vicinity of the Wang family's small villa. The Wang family's small villa was on the east side of East Huang Road, and to the west was an undeveloped commercial area. It was said that according to the original plan, a large imported shopping mall would be opened here. But it was a pity that the boss ran away with his sister-in-law before the matter was even halfway done. As for the building materials that had been shipped here, such as reinforced concrete bricks, glass, and some wood, no one had taken care of them. Ayu had died under an old locust tree in this commercial development area. At that moment, two men in suits with sophisticated equipment on their backs appeared in the originally empty building materials area. They were looking for traces of body-dissolving fluid. Generally speaking, high-quality body-dissolving fluid wouldn't leave any traces. But Mo Immortal Castle's body-dissolving fluid had been made by Mo Immortal Castle itself. A special substance had been incorporated into it, and Mo Immortal Castle could detect it through a special gas-collecting device. The two men were holding a cylindrical object with a very long tube at the end that was connected to a backpack. Very quickly, when they reached an old locust tree, the device beeped in warning. One of them quickly turned on his wristwatch to report the situation to the lady of the castle. "Leader, we've found Ayu's location based on the coordinates where the Soul brand disappeared, and we've detected traces of body-dissolving fluid." On the other end of the line, the lady of the castle asked in a deep voice, "What about Song Qingshu's location? Have you found it?" Based on their current location, the two men quickly located the location where Song Qingshu's Soul brand had disappeared. Finally, they looked at the building in the east. "We've found the lady of the castle. It's a villa. Song Qingshu's soul imprint disappeared in this villa." "A villa?" The lady was astonished. There were actually people who had settled down in this desolate countryside? Her expression darkened. "How about this? Sneak into the villa and investigate." The two men in suits hesitated for a moment before saying, "But the lady of the castle, there's a dog at the entrance of the villa. Wouldn't that be too obvious?" "It's just a dog, let's do it for dog meat. We'll let you have a sumptuous feast. Isn't that great?" Chapter 160. The area around East Huang Road was a low-end area that hadn't been developed yet. Apart from the transport vehicles transporting supplies into the city, there were very few other vehicles that passed through here. It could really be described as a wilderness. So when the two men in suits saw a villa here, not only were they a little surprised, they also felt a little strange. Ever since the real estate bubble, housing prices had long since fallen off. Even a white-collar worker could buy a large house of several hundred square meters in the city with his salary. If he felt that there wasn't enough space, he could also entrust a construction team to use the space expansion spell to increase the space. After all, this technique was now quite mature. So, what kind of family was this? The two men in suits felt a little strange in their hearts, but the lady had already spoken, so they could only obey her arrangements. They stuck invisibility talismans on, and their bodies instantly glowed with a mirage of colored glass before they turned completely transparent. This type of invisibility talisman could hide one's aura. In fact, it was also a prohibited type of talisman, and generally only certain government departments in Huaxiao Nation allowed its limited production and use. The talismans in the hands of the two men in suits had been privately made by Mo Immortal Castle. In fact, this was already illegal, and if they were caught, they would be directly detained. But when the two men tiptoed closer to the villa's entrance, they inexplicably breathed sighs of relief. Because after probing with their spiritual senses, they hadn't sensed the source of spirit energy in the villa. Is this an ordinary family? The two men were a little puzzled. However, since it was an ordinary family, the following matters would be much easier to handle. The window on the second floor is open. Let's go up and take a look first. The two men thought it over and directly jumped through the window. It was Wang Ling's bedroom, which was quite spacious. They entered the study one after another and started to look around. As they pondered this, they reached the door. Then a furry green tail suddenly dropped down from the ceiling. This tail was too thick and strong. The two of them were startled. They hurriedly took a big step back and raised their heads. This time, they saw a slightly larger green Akita. It was hanging upside down on the ceiling, staring at them with a hostile gaze. This was the dog they had seen at the villa's entrance before. The two of them recognized it at a glance. They had felt that there was something wrong with the dog, but they didn't expect that there was really something wrong with it. Also, wasn't this dog way too big? One look, and you could tell that it wasn't a decent dog. In fact, what shocked the two men the most was the dog's insight. They were still wearing the invisibility talisman, but it could still discover them. This was enough to prove that the dog's strength was not weaker than theirs. In fact, it was far stronger than theirs. What should we do? This dog doesn't look weak. Should we retreat first? You're already here. It would be a pity to leave just like that. Both of us are at the peak of the late-stage gold core realm. Why should we be afraid of a dog? Late-stage gold core? Loopy Toad jumped down from the ceiling and sneered. Back at number 60 high, it hadn't been afraid of a golden core cultivator, even when it was so weak. Now he was even less afraid. Since their identities had already been exposed, the two Immortal Castle cultivators felt that there was no need for them to hide anymore. Spirit light flashed in their hands, and each of them summoned an immortal sword to attack. One of the men in a suit pointed his sword directly at Loopy Toad. We originally just wanted to investigate something, and didn't mean to offend you, but you bastard insisted on stopping us. Don't blame us for being impolite. The two men swiftly circulated their spirit energy, and moved in unison, even brandishing their sword chi in unison. It was very obvious that the people who worked in Immortal Castle had been trained and nurtured in an assembly line fashion. The advantage of this was that they could train a lot of people who were proficient in sword techniques in a short period of time. But the disadvantage was that they were too monotonous. Anyone who had studied sword techniques a little would be able to see through them in just a few rounds. Thus, whenever the people from Immortal Castle attacked during a mission, they would do so with murderous intent, and they wanted to end the fight in the shortest possible time. This was to avoid drawing out the fight and creating openings. But looking at the two men's movements, Loopy Toad really felt that they were a little slow, and felt a little sleepy. Thinking back to when it had been in the demon world back then, when it had been talking and laughing with the sword demon king Hualaisher, these two guys probably hadn't even been born yet, right? Then, two dazzling flaming sword lights interrupted Loopy Toad's thoughts. Its eyes met the two sword lights, and just as they were about to reach it, they stopped as if they had come to a stop, and were unable to move forward even half a step. Or a freezing spell. The two Immortal Castle cultivators were alarmed. In a situation where there was a complete disparity in realms, there was a way to rely on aura alone to fight, and that was the famous demon race spell, Aura Freezing Spell. By releasing a special aura to counteract the spirit waves or sharpness produced by a magic weapon, this was a fairly advanced spell. The reason why the demon kings who had descended from the gate between worlds back then had been such a headache was because of this aura freezing spell. For demon kings of the demon race, the aura freezing spell was in fact more like a barrier spell. It could evade the lethality of a cultivator's magic weapon at the first instance. So 6 years ago, Loopy Toad had felt pretty miserable, because its aura freezing spell had been completely useless against Wang Ling. At that time, Little Master Ling had pierced itself with one punch. Now that it had recovered part of its strength, it could finally use this spell again. Loopy Toad couldn't help sighing in its heart. Thinking about it carefully, it also felt like a lifetime had passed. The expressions of the two Immortal Castle cultivators finally changed, as they were completely frightened. They realized that they absolutely couldn't touch this dog. It actually knew the demon race's spell. What on earth was this dog's identity? Retreat! They turned to leave, but found that their bodies wouldn't listen to them, and they couldn't move at all. The aura freezing spell just now had actually followed the sword lights that had slashed at them in the opposite direction. They were completely immobilized. You shouldn't have come here, Loopy Toad said as it swept its gaze over the two people lazily. It withdrew its spirit energy and its body shrank, the blue light in its eyes disappearing. Loopy Toad didn't know if it was because it had been with Little Master Ling for too long, but it didn't feel as murderous as before. It had clearly swallowed the soul of a Shadow Stream killer back at number 60 high school. But now, faced with two cultivators with delicious souls at peak late golden core stage, it actually wasn't the least bit interested. What are you going to do with them? At that moment, a voice came from behind the man in a suit. The two immortal castle cultivators turned pale with fright. They had never expected there to be someone else in the room. Two huge shadows covered them, and they were none other than the two muscular brothers whom Wang Ling had enlightened, the monster pen and goblin eraser. Chapter 161. Loopy Toad didn't have any intention of killing these two people. But little Master Ling would definitely be unhappy if he found out that they had broken into the Wang family's villa, without permission, and were plotting something. Loopy Toad wasn't interested in their souls, but it also didn't want them to leave alive, so it was best to leave them to these two gremlins, Pen and Eraser. These two people couldn't move at all, and had no idea what the two muscular brothers behind them were going to do to them. They were scared to the point of peeing their pants, but unfortunately, the aura freezing spell was so powerful that even their cavernous bodies were frozen. Both of them couldn't stop trembling. Pen, should we get rid of them? Eraser. Forget it, little master won't be happy if their blood splashes all over the room. Alright, there was only one way left. The two muscular brothers looked at the toilet in Wang Ling's bedroom at the same time, and then escorted the two people to the toilet. Pen, you're lucky. Our little master likes cleanliness, so we won't let you see blood today. The two immortal castle cultivators turned pale with fright. What do you want to do? What? Rubbing his fists, Goblin Eraser opened the toilet lid, then grabbed one of them by the foot, and directly flipped him upside down, before stuffing him into the toilet. Finally, he quickly pressed the flush button, and with the sound of rushing water, this person was directly sucked in and directly disappeared. Wang Ling had enlightened this toilet, and it led to an alternate space. No one knew exactly where it led to, but in theory, once they were flushed down the toilet, these two people would essentially disappear from the world. The other immortal castle cultivator was so frightened that his face was covered in sweat. You! Goblin Eraser put one foot on the toilet seat and pointed at it condescendingly. Are you going to go in yourself? Or do you want me to throw you in? The immortal castle cultivators. There were actually a lot of things to do on Thursday. When Wang Ling came to class in the morning, Little Peanut was handing out school notices with a bitter expression on his face. What's this? Dopey stared at the grayish-yellow school paper. This was a notice before the military training in the middle of the month. Some of the items and things to take note of during the military training were marked on it. Everyone's gaze swept through the notice line by line. Soon, all the boys in the class burst out screaming in pain. F***CK. Do we have to shave during military training? Superchin didn't want to do it. It hadn't been easy for him to get a short fringe. It would be such a pity to cut it off. Also, why can girls get special treatment? Superchin felt that this was serious gender discrimination. Amidst the resentment, Master of Dopey said indifferently, calm down for a while, and don't talk about gender discrimination. Let me ask you, which is more important, the bangs or the teapot? The boys thought about it for a while and didn't say anything. Seeing that everyone had quietened down, Dopey nodded in satisfaction. That's right. Actually, a buzz cut is pretty good. It's summer in Shanghai City, and the weather is hot. It'll be cooler after I shave my head. Back in the day, I also had bangs. But after thinking about it carefully, I realized that it didn't matter whether I had bangs or not. After all, I relied on my talent to survive in the world. Hearing this, for some reason, the boys in the class suddenly thought of a saying. He used to be a king. Later he said forget it. Wang Ling felt that Dopey's skin was already hopelessly thick. A haircut wasn't a stranger to Wang Ling, and coincidentally, he had also had bangs before. Furthermore, he could use the spirit energy in his body to stimulate his scalp to rapidly grow hair. This technique focused on stable control of spirit energy and precise positioning. After using inner vision, most golden core cultivators could actually do it. It was just that after Wang Ling used this technique, His hair grew much faster than an ordinary person's. There had been a time when Wang Ling had been obsessed with creating all kinds of hairstyles, but he had later figured it out. Actually, hairstyle wasn't the main point. It was his good looks. So Wang Ling had simply kept a buzz cut until now. Looking at the notice, Wang Ling touched his hair. It seemed a little long. After school, Wang Ling went alone to a small, affordable hairdresser's. This shop was relatively small, but the environment and facilities weren't bad. Furthermore, it specialized in cutting hair for students. Of course, there were plenty of other medium-sized and even large hairdressers next to this affordable hairdressers. But Wang Ling felt that getting a haircut there was really too expensive. He couldn't afford it with his monthly allowance at all. It was just a buzz cut. Wouldn't it be the same everywhere? With this thought in mind, Wang Ling walked into this Alice hairdresser's. As soon as he entered, Wang Ling heard the sound of a hairdryer. The boss was a middle-aged man with slicked-back hair. He had a bit of a bald spot on his head, a little flab on his slightly chubby face, and wore a pair of wire glasses. When he saw Wang Ling come in, he immediately put on a big smile. "Handsome, are you looking for a personal hairdresser?" Wang Ling was silent, then shook his head. The boss's eyes lit up, and he immediately felt that his chance had come. "Handsome, we have a 30 yuan super hairdresser, a 60 yuan chief hairdresser, and a 150 yuan chief hairdresser. As long as you top up 500 yuan in our shop and get a card, you can enjoy a 10% discount from the chief hairdresser. It only costs 15 yuan. Wang Ling shook his head again. He looked around, and his eyes finally fell on a young man. The young man was helping a hairdresser with a yellow airplane haircut, and the two of them were standing around an auntie to give her a perm. "Who is this?" Wang Ling's voice rang out in the boss's head. The boss was startled, but very quickly, the boss regained his composure. His shop was rarely visited by cultivators, and was still more frequented by ordinary people. Even foundation establishment high school students would go to the large and medium-sized hairdressers next door. Thus, Wang Ling's appearance surprised the boss a little. It was said that cultivators were rich. They didn't care about money in the secular world at all, and were the kind that spent money like it was dirt. They even topped up their phone cards for several million yuan. Had he just picked up a fat sheep? The boss was overjoyed and quickly explained. "This little brother is a new apprentice in our shop, but no customers have dared to cut his hair. So now we can only let him cut a wig for practice. If Handsome is willing to get a card, I'll have this apprentice's Shifu, Master Kevin, cut your hair. This is the top hairdresser in our shop. Does it cost money?" Wang Ling raised his eyebrows and asked telepathically. "Handsome only needs a card, and Master Kevin only costs 15 yuan for a haircut." Wang Ling shook his head, looked at the young man, and said telepathically again, "I'm talking about him." The boss was blank for a moment, and somehow felt that the situation wasn't good. He's an apprentice, there's no charge." Wang Ling nodded, then pointed at the young man. "That's him." Chapter 162. Actually, Wang Ling felt that he really wasn't a stingy person. Money should be spent where it should be spent, and not a penny where it shouldn't be spent. This was the economic view of consumption that Wang Ling had developed since he was a child under the guidance of father and mother Wang. A haircut was just a trivial matter, and Wang Ling was more willing to spend the money on crispy noodle snacks. He had recently heard that Little Raccoon had released a new flavor, which was indigo wood mustard. Wang Ling planned to buy a packet to try it out. If he could save the money for this haircut, he could buy a few more packets. After a moment of silence in the barber shop, the apprentice brother whom Wang Ling had called out had an incredulous expression on his face. He turned to Wang Ling and bowed solemnly. "Thank you for your trust in me. I will definitely do my best." Wang Ling nodded indifferently, then found a place to sit down. Everyone around him also looked at Wang Ling strangely, because apprentice hairdressers were actually very frightening existences. They were no less frightening than a new intern nurse in a hospital. The only difference was that one would stick needles into your skin, while the other would dig into your scalp. Wang Ling was probably the only one who had the guts to do this, This was probably the apprentice brother's first time cutting a customer's hair. Holding the electric razor in his hand, a few drops of cold sweat trickled down the corners of his eyebrows. He looked a little nervous, like an inexperienced little sister who was about to offer her first time. I'm going to start. It was just a buzz cut. He just needed to clean the sides and the back. It wasn't that hard. The apprentice brother comforted himself. But the moment the electric razor touched Wang Ling's scalp, his hand trembled. In a flash, the back of Wang Ling's head was shaved bald. Little brother. The boss. Wang Ling rubbed his bald scalp and shook his head. Then, the hair there actually grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. And very quickly, he turned from a Wu Kuan to a Scion. The boss and his companions were stupefied. What the hell? There was this kind of operation? After about an hour, Wang Ling walked out of the barber shop without a hitch. The boss grabbed Wang Ling. Jinren, don't go. Then, Wang Ling saw the boss take out 200 yuan from his trouser pocket and stuff it into Wang Ling's hand. Wang Ling. The boss pointed behind him at the hair strewn all over the floor and looked at Wang Ling gratefully. Thank you, spiritual master, for providing my shop with hair. The quality of immortal hair is really too good. It can be made into a high-class wig. This 200 yuan is the market price for hair. I hope that Taoist master will come often in the future. Wang Ling. Wang Ling combed his hair and went home, his pockets full of half-price crispy noodle snacks. This time, he had shaved his head and picked up 200 yuan for free, replenishing his stock of crispy noodle snacks. When he got home, he found that there were a lot of people in the house today. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Song Qingshu were waiting in the living room, and the old man very politely served them a bowl of mung bean soup. In the summer, old people had the habit of boiling mung bean soup to relieve internal heat. When old man Wang was young, his mung bean soup was a star dish in restaurants. There was a limited supply every day, and even a bowl was hard to come by. However, it was a pity that these two fools did not know how to cherish or be grateful. Staring blankly at this bowl of mung bean soup, they started to ponder the meaning of the mung beans in it. In just a short while, they could even clearly count how many mung beans there were in the bowl. Song Qingshu actually didn't have this problem at first, but after following Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal for a few days, he had been led astray. Brother Ling. Seeing Wang Ling appear, Grenade-throwing cupped his fists politely. Next to him, Song Qingshu also stood up and saluted, calling him Ling Jinren. The old man didn't care about Wang Ling. He still had to catch up on his TV series. Seeing that Wang Ling had arrived, he hurriedly waved his hand and said to the two of them, "Well, there's more in the pot of mung bean soup. If it's not enough, I'll go get more. You guys talk first." "Okay, thank you, great senior." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal said sternly and nodded. At the same time, he was deep in thought. I definitely have to take the mung bean soup home later and carefully study its mysteries. Maybe after drinking this soup, I'll have hope of reaching the void refinement stage. Wang Ling. Returning to the topic at hand, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal sat on the sofa and looked at Wang Ling as he said, "Brother Ling, I came to look for you this time because I have good news. Thanks to Little Song this time, we've found the whereabouts of the maker of the stone ghost mask." Song Qingshu echoed him. "I only provided a little clue, but thanks to Senior Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and that Senior Black, they were able to pinpoint the location based on the clue." Hearing this, Wang Ling nodded. In the end, Song Qingshu still fulfilled his promise and didn't go back on his word. If they could find the maker of the stone ghost mask, it meant that the matter of the stone ghost mask would come to an end very soon. As for Mo Immortal Castle, which had been trying to use the mask to secretly rise to power, their plot would also be completely ruined. Of course, this was the ideal situation. In fact, Wang Ling was also very curious about the identity of the maker of the mask. According to the location Little Black gave me, the maker isn't far from here. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal opened the location message that Little Black had sent him, which clearly indicated the distance between the 2 points, which was 800 kilometers. An ordinary cultivator would be able to reach this distance in 20 minutes on a flying sword. Wang Ling cupped his chin as he looked at the coordinates that Little Black had sent him, and slowly frowned. The more he looked, the more he felt that this place was a little familiar. Brother Ling, don't worry. Little Black found this place after repeated calculations and verification. Combined with my great magic power, there's absolutely no mistake. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal vowed solemnly. But Wang Ling had a bad feeling about this, and his eyelids started to twitch again. It was a one-star disaster alert. Who knew what on earth would happen? Wang Ling had Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Song Qingshu put their hands on his shoulders. And then with a swish, the three of them simultaneously teleported in the direction of the coordinates. Right after that, a somewhat old-school restaurant that looked like it was on the verge of collapsing appeared in front of them. Looking at the huge words Midnight Dining Hall, on a horizontal board hanging from the entrance, Wang Ling was lost in deep thought. Damn. Why was it this place? Could it be that this restaurant owner used to be a smith? From a smith to a chef. Wang Ling felt that this was even more ridiculous than being a crossover singer. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal looked at the twitching expression on Wang Ling's long-lost poker face, and couldn't help feeling a little curious. Brother Ling, it seems that you've been here before? The melodious singing in the restaurant rang out one after another. This is the person I deeply love and think about day and night. Chapter 163. When the three of them entered, Midnight Dining Hall's boss, Tan Siming, was scrubbing the dishes. The long knife scar on his face, and the bitter expression on his face, made him look especially ferocious in the dim light. Although it wasn't time for customers to visit yet, the boss was already preparing to receive them at midnight. As for the song Old Boys sung by Tang Yuning, it had been played on an obsolete old-fashioned radio next to the boss. In this day and age, radio stations were no longer very popular, but that couldn't stop people's feelings for radio programs. So although there weren't many radio programs, there were still people doing them. Among them, one had to mention Zhang Yi, the radio's top presenter. He wasn't just a radio presenter, he had a broadcasting background, but was also a very famous filmmaker. He had once written a book about his experiences called I Am a Big Star, and the entire book was filled with all kinds of lyrics, poems, and stories. It always felt like he was showing off his knowledge. As a veteran online novelist, Father Wang also defined the nature of this book as hydrology. Boss Tan was still washing the dishes. When they came in, he almost reflexively pointed at the menu on the wall and said unhurriedly, "That's all there is on the menu. But if you want to eat something else, I can make it for you." After all, apart from Wang Ling, this was the first time Grenade-throwing and Song Qingshu had come here. Song Qingshu thought for a bit, and felt that it wouldn't be polite to interrogate them, as if they were criminals without ordering anything. So he asked for 3 large bowls of Laotan pickled cabbage beef noodles. He even took the initiative to settle the bill. 1 large bowl was 20 yuan, and 3 large bowls were 60 yuan. Song Qingshu straightaway threw out a 100 yuan bill, and even waved his hand at Boss Tan to tell him to keep the change. Nouveau riche was capricious. In fact, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal had been using Song Qingshu as a human ATM for the past 2 days. This guy had sold off all the assets he had accumulated over the years at Mo Immortal Castle, and now had so much money that he didn't know how to spend it. "Thank you." When the boss collected the money, he finally looked up and saw Wang Ling among the 3 people, and his expression instantly changed. Aren't you that 33 yuan and 70 cents creative genius? Wang Ling. Boss Tan still had an impression of Wang Ling. After all, he was the man who had sold the song Old Boys, which had now spread all over Huaxiao Nation. Such a popular song, along with the lyrics and music, had been sold for 33 yuan and 70 cents, the same as 2 medium bowls of beef noodles. "Boss, do you know this brother of mine?" Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal asked as he looked at the boss. "He and his father came to my shop to order beef noodles before." Boss Tan answered. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's heart trembled. It turned out that Senior Wang had also been to this shop. It seems like this shop is not simple. This song Old Boys, you've all heard it, right? After thinking for a while, Boss Tan simply told him about the song Old Boys. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Song Qingshu were greatly shaken when they heard this. Brother Ling, you can write songs? Wang Ling nodded shamelessly, his face expressionless. Because from a theoretical point of view, he was just a carrier of songs. At the mention of old boys, Boss Tan's resentful expression deepened. Previously, when Little Tang wasn't popular, he would always come to my shop. There was a time when he had to rely on me to help him survive in Songhai City. Now that he's popular, he hasn't been here for a long time. Speaking up to this point, Boss Tan smiled bitterly. I was hoping that he would help me drum up some business. This is simply abandoning him after using him. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal shook his head. The boss had originally been depressed about this matter, but now that he had found someone to talk to, his mood instantly improved a lot. He looked at the previous boss and said, "By the way, why did you come to me at this hour?" Back to the topic at hand, Boss Tan wasn't a fool. It was written very clearly in his shop that it generally opened at midnight. But these 3 people had come to him at 7 or 8, and had even ordered 3 big bowls of beef noodles in one go. The most important thing was that they had even given him a tip. There was most likely something fishy going on here. Boss Tan had seen a lot of people over the years, and could sometimes guess what the customers in his shop were thinking, just by looking at their expressions. Fortunately, Boss Tan was a straightforward person, and his attitude reassured Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. He didn't try to hide anything, and with a flash of spirit light, he took out an illustration of the stone ghost mask which he had prepared in advance. Boss Tan, have you seen this before? Boss Tan cupped his chin as he gazed at the illustration, his expression gradually turning serious. He then stared at Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, and asked a little excitedly, "Where did you find this mask?" When Boss Tan said this, the weight in everyone's hearts was instantly lifted. Sure enough, the owner of this shabby restaurant, Boss Tan, had something to do with the stone ghost mask. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal answered truthfully, "Brother Ling bought the mask we have on some treasure for 5 yuan, and it even included free shipping." Boss Tan, if you know more about this mask, please tell us the truth. Please tell us the truth. As far as we know, there should be 2 stone ghost masks. This is a twin magical weapon. And now, someone is trying to use these 2 masks to do evil. Saying this, Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal stepped forward and gripped Boss Tan's hand tightly. "Boss Tan, it's up to you to save the world." Boss Tan stared at the illustrated handbook for a while, then shook his head and replied, "Although I'm very surprised as to how on earth you found me, I don't know. But I'm sorry to tell you that I'm not the only one who made these 2 masks. When I was young, I made them with the little girl from the neighborhood." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. "Made of mud? But there's primordium black crystal in this mask. It's the hardest metal in the entire universe." Boss Tan thought carefully for a moment before saying, "Oh, we did indeed find some black crystals in the mud at the time, so we just put them in." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal, Song Qingshu and Wang Ling. The scene fell into a dead silence. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal took a deep breath. "So Boss Tan, you're not a smith?" Boss Tan shrugged. "I never said I was. The girl was the one who made the masks. I just cooperated with her in making them. In the end, it was also the dry mud she baked." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. "Then, does Boss Tan still have the contact information for that mud-playing little girl?" Boss Tan. "It's been so many years, we haven't been in contact for a long time. But I still remember this girl's name. Maybe you can investigate based on this lead." Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. "What's her name?" Boss Tan. "Niwa." Chapter 164. Based on the information Song Qingshu had provided, it had taken Little Black 2 days and 2 nights to obtain this lead. He had thought that there would be significant progress, but before this step could be taken, the lead had been cut off again. Even he felt vaguely annoyed. Now, where to find this mud-playing little girl called Niwa had become a thorny problem. Of course, if he hadn't been restricted by the Dao Talisman seal, he could have used her aura to track down and lock onto a target, but that would have caused the global power grid to go down, which wasn't an outcome he wanted to see. It was very clear that the stone ghost mask was a very tricky problem. Boss Tan looked at the three distressed people and was deep in thought. After a moment, he took out an iron box from his drawer and gave it to grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Boss Tan, what's this? There's a hawthorn tree seed inside, Boss Tan replied. This is a promise I made to that girl when I was little. I'll find a place to plant the seed, and as long as it blossoms and bears fruit one day, that girl will appear under it. Will this really work? It had been so many years. He probably couldn't even remember the names of his kindergarten classmates anymore. Those promises he had made when he was little really didn't sound very reliable. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal recalled how he had boasted every day when he was little that he would marry all the girls in kindergarten. But now, he was still a single dog. There's no other way. I can only try everything I can. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal opened the iron box, picked up the hawthorn tree seed inside, and sighed. By the time they returned to Wuncian Garden with the hawthorn tree seed, it was already close to midnight. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal and Song Qingshu had gone to confirm a few things. They had heard from Loopy Toad that Mo Immortal Castle had sent 2 people to investigate during the day. Even with his eyes closed, Song Qingshu knew that they had to have been sent by the lady of the castle to confirm whether he was dead or not. Unfortunately, Loopy Toad had simply and roughly flushed them down the toilet, and grenade-throwing Senior Immortal Castle hadn't been able to ask them for more details. Otherwise, they would have definitely been able to get a lot of little-known secrets out of these 2 people. Be careful in the next 2 days. Those people definitely know that you're not dead. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal told Song Qingshu as he planted the hawthorn seed in his backyard. Don't worry, Senior. Senior Wang hasn't taken back his long johns yet. Song Qingshu replied. Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal broke out in a sweat. Most enchanted magic treasures have a time limit, and Brother Ling will probably enchant them again regularly. I don't think you have much time left with the long johns you're wearing. So when it's time to run, you have to run, understand? Song Qingshu nodded like a chick pecking at rice. Yes, of course, Senior. I haven't returned Senior Wang's flip-flops. If I were to run now, I would be faster than a reporter. Song Qingshu. Speaking of which, are these hawthorn seeds really useful? Who knows? Grenade-throwing Senior Immortal patted the spirit soil in his hand and sighed slightly. According to grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's calculations, it would take at least 5 days for the seeds to sprout. Given the power of the spirit earth and the current cultivation speed, it would take at least half a month for it to grow into a hawthorn tree. The most important thing was whether that girl called Niwa would show up as promised. Staring at the spirit earth, the 2 of them sank into deep thought, feeling a severe pain in the ass. It was June 3rd on Friday in the 6th week of the semester. That morning, some families were happy and some were sad. For the sake of the military training, the boys had all shaved their hair to a crew cut. Some of the more heroic ones, like Super Chun, had been straightaway shaved bald by the hairdresser. Holding his head, Super Chun wanted to cry, but had no tears to shed. He had clearly told the hairdresser that he only needed to trim his hair. Even if it was a crew cut, he had to look handsome. Who would have thought that the hairdresser would, in the blink of an eye, trim and embroider him into a bald wuku? Super Chun felt that he must have owed the hairdresser a huge sum of money in his previous life. He was really bloody unlucky. When Teacher Pan walked into the classroom, it was actually a little noisy, as everyone was discussing hairstyles. But today, Teacher Pan uncharacteristically didn't get angry. Instead, she silently put her handouts on the lectern and admired the boys' crew cuts with the girls around her. As a man, he should feel refreshed like this. How good was this? As a pioneer teacher at number 60 High, Teacher Pan had led many batches of elite students. The most impressive thing about Teacher Pan was her strict teaching style and class rules. She was a person who liked to follow the rules, and anyone who got to know her for a long time would have a deep impression of her obsessive-compulsive disorder. Now that all the boys had shaved their crew cut, Teacher Pan's mood was as relaxed as if she had been constipated for a long time and had finally been released. While Teacher Pan was rejoicing over the boys' new looks in Grade 1, Class 3, on the other side, The general administration of 100 schools in Songhai City was in an uproar. Ajwa sat at his desk with a little bitter resentment. Ever since number 60 High had been attacked by shadow stream killers, he hadn't been able to let it go. Thus, as soon as he took office, he had increased the vigilance of all the high schools within the jurisdiction of the general administration of 100 schools in Songhai City. This was to prevent heretics from rising again. Ajwa didn't want to make the slightest slip-up while he was still in office. The official culture of cultivators was far more complicated than ordinary people could imagine. Number 60 High was his alma mater. If he couldn't even protect it, it would inevitably become a topic of gossip and ridicule. It was almost time for number 60 High's military training, so Ajwa had secretly increased the security at number 60 High in the last few days. Unfortunately, Ajwa received bad news at this juncture. The younger sister of the master of Shadow Stream, who had been captured at number 59 high school previously, had broken out of prison. Songhai City's Class 1 prison was an important place for serious criminals deployed by the Cultivation Police Department. A lot of famous criminals had been imprisoned here. The criminal from Fury Cultivation University, who had poisoned his roommate, had been locked up here for a very long time, and was finally executed in accordance with the law. This incident had alarmed national leaders, and it just so happened that members of the Central Cultivation Inspection Team were in Songhai City. Secretary Dakong had rushed to the scene almost immediately. To be honest, it was quite inconceivable that someone had broken out of the National Class 1 prison for serious criminals. It had to be noted that all the cultivators who had been sent to prison had special sealing spells cast on them, and the handcuffs they wore were also specially made to restrict the output of their abilities. Furthermore, there was a huge sealing array at the bottom of the prison, which had a radius of 10,000 li coupled with the high walls that even an attacking giant wouldn't be able to cross. Breaking out of the prison was simply nonsense. After Secretary Dakong arrived at the scene, the Cultivation Police Department had already dispatched the Major Crimes Investigation Unit to investigate the situation. The only good news that could be confirmed at the moment was that the criminal hadn't left Songhai City's high-security prison. It was just that the way he had escaped was a little inconceivable. The other party had actually dismantled the steel plate under the bed and used only a fork for instant noodles to forcibly dig out a passage. Chapter 165. It was really inconceivable that an instant noodle fork would actually be able to dig such a long tunnel in a national level 1 prison for serious criminals. With her spirit energy completely restricted, how had the girl managed to break through the heavy reinforced steel plates made from strengthened immortal crystals? That was one problem. After breaking through the steel plates, how had she transported the bricks and soil out? That was another problem. Ajwa arrived not long after Secretary Dakong. When he arrived at the prison, he could clearly feel dizzy. Seeing this, the warden, who had been waiting at the main entrance to receive him, hurriedly hung a pendant around Ajwa's neck, and his dizziness was alleviated. "What's this?" The warden explained. "Director Zhua, this is a resistance crystal developed by Huaxiao's Cultivation Academy of Science. When you wear it, it can restrict the power of the magic array beneath the prison. Each staff member working in the prison has one." Hearing this, Ajwa nodded. The magic array in the prison was really too powerful. As soon as he stepped in, he almost couldn't breathe, and his overall symptoms were similar to hypoglycemia: chest tightness, shortness of breath, rapid heartbeat, and dizziness. But the serious criminals locked up here not only had to face the suppression of the magic array, but also the restraining power of the special handcuffs on their wrists. Judging from all the conditions, breaking out of this prison was a complete joke. This incident was a little unexpected, but fortunately, we discovered it in time. There are signal transmitters embedded in the prisoner's handcuffs, and according to the signal source, the prisoner is still hiding in the prison. The warden wanted to cry a little. If the prison break was successful this time, he would probably have to directly go GG and go home to retire and farm. Ajwa was directly brought to the crime scene by the warden. Songhai Cultivation Police's major crime investigation team had already arrived, and they all surrounded the entrance to the prison from which the girl had broken out. At first glance, Ajwa saw Secretary Dukhong's figure in a windbreaker in the vast crowd. "Little Zhuozi, you're finally here." When the old secretary saw Ajwa, his frown instantly brightened. "It was all thanks to your efforts that we were able to capture this person last time." "Ajwa, I already have a basic understanding of the situation. If you have any questions, you can ask me directly. If you have any other thoughts, you can also tell me. Everyone here will listen to your commands. We have to do our best to arrest and bring this criminal to justice in the shortest time possible, before he actually escapes from prison." The old secretary patted Ajwa on the shoulder. "Little Zhuozi, it's up to you. I believe that if you can catch her once, you can catch her again." Ajwa already didn't know what to say. The most important thing was that he himself was in a state of confusion regarding the previous two situations. "How did she escape?" The old secretary replied. "According to our initial observation, the criminal did use a spoon made from instant noodles to dig a tunnel to escape. Although the tunnel wasn't deep, considering the criminal's identity as a shadow stream killer, he was proficient in the bone shrinking skill. He could use this small hole to escape. As for the steel plate at the bottom, the prisoner used a corrosive liquid to burn through it." "Corrosive liquid?" Ajwa was astonished. "Isn't there a full body examination before entering prison? How did he bring it in?" Speaking up to this point, the warden rubbed his temples in pain. "If our guess is correct, the criminal probably hid the tool in his crotch. This is a blind spot for inspection." "Ajwa." "Crotch." The old secretary nodded sternly. "This speculation sounds a little nonsensical, but it's actually very reasonable. Actually, it's easier to hide things in the crotch. Even a grenade can be hidden there. What's a small bottle of corrosive liquid to it?" "Ajwa." 2 hours had passed since Jiang Luiying had escaped from the prison cell. The outside world was calm and peaceful, but Songhai's level 1 prison was already in an uproar. No one could say for sure what would happen in 2 hours. The longer it dragged on, the higher the chances that the criminal would actually escape. As a criminal wanted by the vicious assassination organization Shadowstream, there was no guarantee that the other party wouldn't do anything harmful to society if he was allowed to escape from prison. Jiang Luiying had crawled out of a haystack 3 kilometers away from the prison's main building. When she crawled out, she was still holding an instant noodles fork and handcuffed. Tied to the fork was an armor-piercing talisman, which was why Jiang Luiying had been able to dig through the soil as effortlessly as if she were digging pudding. When she broke out of the ground, the effect of the armor-piercing talisman had already disappeared. And the instant the effect of the armor-piercing talisman disappeared, the instant it tragically broke into 2 pieces. Oh, that was right. Jiang Luiying had also taken this armor-piercing talisman out of her crotch. "It's all thanks to the escape package elder sister prepared for me." Jiang Luiying held a glass bottle the size of a finger in her hand, which was stuffed with all kinds of hoi poi capsules, which contained all kinds of magic treasures that could be used to escape capture. Jiang Luiying, on the other hand, had kept them in her crotch all this time. Jiang Luiying could have escaped a long time ago, but unfortunately she had been knocked unconscious. By the time she had woken up, she was already in prison. It had taken some time, but fortunately, she had managed to escape in the end. Lying in the haystack, Jiang Luiying stared at the bottle in her hand. She gritted her teeth hatefully and pounded the ground in grief and indignation. "Those damn cats and high school students. They made me suffer so much here. Just you wait." Jiang Luiying narrowed her eyes, a hint of malice in them. Her top priority now was to think of a way to escape from here. Jiang Luiying was well aware that although she had escaped from the cell, she hadn't truly escaped the prison. Furthermore, she had a hunch that she was being watched. "I have to think of a way to undo these damn handcuffs first." After calming down, the girl stared at the handcuffs in deep thought. These handcuffs were made of stainless steel. The material was very special and had the ability to suppress spirit energy. Coupled with the restrictive array at the foot of the prison, the spirit energy she could now use was so minuscule that it wasn't even worth mentioning. However, Jiang Luiying still thought of another way. She took out a hoi poi capsule from the glass bottle, which contained the last armor-piercing talisman. Taking it out of the capsule, the girl stuck it to her 36D chest, as if she had cut off all means of retreat. Then, she took a deep breath. She placed her hands flat on a rock, and tried to put as much distance between them as possible. After that, she lifted her upper body and flung it violently. Boom! Chapter 166. In ancient times, there was a chest weapon that could shatter boulders. And today, there was a chest weapon that could shatter shackles. Looking at the shattered handcuffs, Jiang Luiying suddenly felt a sense of heroism in her heart. She felt that she had accomplished an unprecedented feat. The main reason was that this armor-piercing talisman was just too useful. This was an armor-piercing talisman, which had been specially drawn by her elder sister, and was more vicious and violent than the ones sold on the market. That was why it could generate enough force to directly shatter the handcuffs. Without the shackles of the handcuffs, Jiang Luiying felt that her spirit energy had recovered significantly. Although the magic array under the prison had the ability to restrict spirit energy, it was still very difficult to control it. But over the past few days, Jiang Luiying had gradually adapted to this kind of oppressive environment. She had 2 golden cores inside her body, which was like having 2 CPUs at the same time. Her spirit energy worked faster than an ordinary person's, and even in such a restrictive environment, she could still exert half of her strength. This had played an important role in her escape from the prison. Without the help of the prison resistance crystal, it would be nonsense for an ordinary felon to escape from the prison's magic array and the handcuffs on their hands. But now, the girl felt that her chances of escaping were much higher. This prison was quite large, and she had just escaped from the main building. His current location was a training area 3 kilometers behind the main building. It was a small forest. It had originally been a place for prisoners to exercise, but now it had become a hiding place for Jiang Luiying to escape. If she dashed out so brazenly now, the prison officers who were already searching nearby would immediately find her. What Jiang Luiying needed to do now was to use the invisibility talisman in the escape package to find the sewer that led outside the prison as soon as possible. Then, while the armor-piercing talisman's effect was still active, she would use the chest weapon to smash a hole in the barrier outside the prison. Otherwise, there was no way she could break through the prison's high walls, which were ridiculously thick. Now that things had come to this, Jiang Luiying had no other choice. If she wanted to escape from here, she could only make one last attempt. In the forest, the girl gritted her teeth, circulated her spirit energy, and stuck the invisibility talisman on her body, then swiftly flew off in one direction. Half an hour later, the prison guards patrolling outside found the broken handcuffs on the ground, and Secretary Sun and Audiobook quickly led a group of people to the scene. When the warden saw the handcuffs that had been reduced to pieces, his heart trembled with fear, and a distressed expression appeared on his face. How did the other party destroy these handcuffs made of special materials, under the restriction of the sealing circle and the handcuffs? Since the enemy has the ability to escape, destroying the handcuffs should be expected. Secretary Dakong gazed at the shards of the handcuffs and pondered a little. But what on earth could have such destructive power? Little Zhuozi, do you have any ideas? Audiobook was at a loss. The old secretary continued to speculate. The handcuffs of the first-class prisons in the country are all made of extremely dense and pure dark steel. This girl can actually cause such great damage to the handcuffs. This is enough to prove that they must have some kind of weapon of mass destruction on them. Warden, old secretary, do you think that this prisoner will harm the other felons in our prison? That's not it. Secretary Sun shook his head. This girl's #1 goal now is to escape. So the weapon of mass destruction she's carrying is very likely to be used to destroy the prison's high walls, or the barrier outside the walls. As soon as he finished speaking, a deafening roar traveled into everyone's ears. The warden held a walkie-talkie in his hand. Hurry up and check. What's that sound? Very quickly, several prison guards on the other end of the walkie-talkie reported. Reporting. We found the target. The target is destroying the barrier. Warden. Then hurry up and subdue the target. Prison guard. Reporting. The target is moving very fast and seems to have used an invisibility talisman. We're using a scanner to locate the target. Warden. After locating the target, immediately seize the weapon and arrest her. Seize the weapon. Outside the high-class prison's barrier, the girl's figure was exposed under the scanner. A group of prison guards stared at the girl who was holding her chest and smashing the barrier with all her might, and couldn't help falling into deep thought. It was June 4th on Saturday in the 6th week of the semester. When Wang Ling got up in the morning and turned on the TV, he noticed that the same news was being repeated on all the channels. At around 1800 hours last night, a felon from Songhai's high-class prison destroyed the barrier and successfully escaped. Wang Ling was surprised to discover that this girl was actually the person who had been captured at number 59 high school back then. According to the relevant investigation by the Cultivation police, it had been confirmed that this girl was in fact the younger sister of the master of Shadow Stream. It was precisely because of this identity that the girl hadn't gone through the judicial process at that time and had been directly sent to Songhai First Prison to be locked up. Wang Ling calculated carefully that it had already been 3 weeks, or almost a month, since the incident had happened. There are so many prison guards in the prison, but they can't even keep an eye on a girl. The old man sat in front of the TV and drank some vegetable porridge before directly turning it off. Dad, why did you turn off the TV? Father Wang was watching happily, because he realized that this girl's breasts were quite big. Of course, this wasn't the main point. The main point was that Father Wang was more curious about how this girl had broken out of prison and wanted to see the follow-up news report. The old man shook his head. Even if the news doesn't continue broadcasting, I can probably guess what's going to happen. Based on the usual news routine, when something this big happens, the relevant department leader will most likely shift the blame to someone else. If you don't believe me, I'll turn it on again for you to see. The old man turned the TV back on. Coincidentally, the news was at the same time that the person in charge of Songhai First Prison was making a statement. Surrounded by cameras and microphones from reporters from all over the country, a prison warden, who looked to be in his late 20s, had a gloomy expression on his face. I'm very sorry to have caused everyone to worry. Actually, the situation this time isn't as serious as we thought. We've already issued a national wanted order, and we've already found clues leading to the fugitive's escape. We'll immediately organize forces to arrest and bring the fugitive to justice. A female reporter wearing black-rimmed glasses asked. Warden Liang, can you explain the main reason for the fugitive's escape this time? Actually, the mistake this time was that our prison used newcomers. These newcomers aren't very familiar with the job, so when the fugitive was taken into custody in the prison, speaking up to this point, this Warden Liang lowered his head with a sorrowful expression. Speaking up to this point, this Warden Liang lowered his head with a sorrowful expression. Yes, that's right. All of this is the fault of the temporary workers. Chapter 167. Just like that, the glorious temporary worker was once again implicated. Wang Ling knew that this was a common statement used by the relevant departments in Huaxiao Nation, just like the strong condemnation and protest of Huaxiao's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. This set of rhetoric had been carefully designed, and it was suitable for all kinds of interview questions. Although the news of the girl's prison break was spreading like wildfire, there were very few news reports about it online. Wang Ling clicked on several news apps, and there were only a few comments on the relevant news reports. It was very obvious that this matter had been suppressed, just like Mother Wang's groping incident last time. Warden Liang had played it down on TV, but Wang Ling had a bad feeling looking at the news reports. His eyelids were twitching again, and this time, the disaster warning was actually 3 stars thus. Although it was Saturday, Wang Ling was home and didn't go anywhere, he felt uneasy. The frequent twitching of his eyelids gave him a hint of anxiety. What would the jailbreak girl do after she got out of prison? Wang Ling lay on his back on his bed and crossed his arms as a pillow as he thought distractedly. It was clearly impossible for her to seek revenge on number 59 high school and number 60 high school now that she had escaped from prison. Most of the students in the school were on vacation. Even if they came looking for trouble, there were still so many teachers on duty who wouldn't give the Shadow Stream killer an opportunity to take advantage of. Looking for Wang Ming sounded even more unreliable. Huaxio's top leaders all knew about the grudge between the strongest brain and this Shadow Stream girl. Once the news of her prison break got out, they would definitely send more people to protect Wang Ming. Then, the only person left to swiftly retaliate against in a short period of time was black charcoal. When a person had nowhere to vent their anger, they would naturally look for a soft persimmon to pinch. Wang Ling felt that Zheng Tan was now in a very dangerous situation. Wang Ling turned into a white Persian cat and once again appeared under that old willow tree in number 59 high school. Considering the urgency of the situation, Wang Ling had directly teleported over. Wang Ling carefully sensed his surroundings and realized that it was all quiet, and there was no sound at all. He lay down at the mouth of the tree hole and sensed for a moment, but there wasn't the slightest trace of an aura inside. Whether it was the original chief of staff, Battalion 1 Commander the Monk, or Zheng Tan's Cavalry Battalion, Infantry Battalion and Air Force, none of them were here. Wang Ling opened his eyes and used the Heavenly Eye flashback spell. The scene in front of him started to flow backward, but he didn't capture any information. This proved that charcoal had left at least half an hour ago. What's more, they had turned out in full force. They brought along all the fellows in the cave and were fully armed. Even the Yadali cannon in the cave had disappeared. Where did they go? He was very worried about Zheng Tan's safety. Through his aura search, he could confirm that Zheng Tan and the others were already far away from Peiyuan district. It had been at least 12 hours since they left the tree hole, which was earlier than he had expected. Now there was only one way to find Zheng Tan. In a mysterious laboratory on the border of Huaxio Nation, a man in black tights was engrossed in research. In his hands were the blueprints for the Armstrong Cyclone Jet Armstrong cannon. Since the laboratory had been destroyed the last time, Little Black had been trying to restore this cannon, which he had painstakingly developed. He was waiting for a clue from grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Then he would carry the cannon to that bastard's house and directly blow it up. Little Black was in the middle of recalculating the cannon's firing speed when a hand suddenly pressed down on his shoulder, scaring him so much that he trembled all over. Who is it? This time, Little Black saw a youngster in a white short-sleeved shirt standing behind him. You are. Wang Ling directly revealed his identity telepathically. Little Black was astonished. You're Ling Jinren? This time, Wang Ling didn't have to deliberately disguise his face like last time. Because the last time he had been here, he hadn't known about the relationship between Little Black and grenade throwing. Now that he knew that the other party was on his side, there was no need to disguise himself. To verify that he was the real Ling Jinren, Wang Ling even posted a photo of grenade-throwing Senior Immortal. Wang Ling had secretly taken it when he had been with grenade throwing. He had taken it to deal with this kind of situation in case he needed it. Looking at grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's smiling face in the photo, which was as bright as a chrysanthemum, Little Black's doubts about the youngster's identity were completely dispelled. It was only when he was with Ling Jinren that this Cultivation Forum leader would smile like a fool. So it really is Ling Jinren. My apologies, my apologies. Little Black cupped his fists excitedly. So this was the big shot who was going to help him find that bastard who had destroyed the lab. He actually looked so young. What business do you have with me, Ling Jinren? Wang Ling didn't beat around the bush, and directly gave Little Black a sketch of Zheng Tan that he had prepared beforehand, as well as the specific location of the willow tree. Can you find it? When Little Black saw the sketch of Zheng Tan, it instantly dawned on him. It turned out that Ling Jinren's cat had gone missing. But why had it appeared in this strange location? Could it be that big shots in the cultivation world nowadays like to raise their pets freely? Out of politeness, Little Black didn't ask too many questions. Based on the coordinates Wang Ling had marked, Little Black easily located the willow tree's vicinity and successfully hacked into all the surveillance equipment nearby. This time Wang Ling finally caught a clue. Zheng Tan and the others had set off at around 8 o'clock last night, and each cat had been covered with an invisibility talisman. As Wang Ling had guessed, they had left the tree hole with all their fellows. It was obvious that they were going to fight a team battle. Wang Ling's heavenly eye could clearly see Zheng Tan's black, confident face through the surveillance cameras. This guy was actually smiling. But what kind of team battle was it that was worth Zheng Tan mobilizing all its forces? While Wang Ling was worried, he was also a little curious. Little Black was indeed Little Black. As a computer network existence that could turn something rotten into a divine weapon, it was able to deduce Zheng Tan's final destination, Shanghai Dahuang International Airport, based on just a bit of Zheng Tan's whereabouts when it had set off. Airport this time, whether it was Little Black or Wang Ling, both of them were utterly shocked. Little Black hacked into the airport ticketing system and investigated all the transaction records for that day. In the end, it discovered a set of rather strange data. After analyzing it, Little Black had an incredulous expression on its face. Ling Jinren, your cat is really too powerful. It actually chartered its own plane. Wang Ling was startled by Zheng Tan's actions. Chapter 168. Thanks to various coincidences, Zheng Tan and Wang Ling's incarnation of Immortal Meow had fought together in number 59 high school. After returning that day, Zheng Tan had started to drill its independent regiment day and night, as if it had been injected with chicken blood. It had sent out several of its battalion commanders to expand its ranks and recruit soldiers everywhere. Now, Zheng Tan's subordinates alone already had the strength of 2 divisions of cats. Even its realm and strength had experienced unprecedented growth. In fact, all of this was thanks to Wang Ling. When it had shaken hands with Wang Ling for the last time, Zheng Tan had pulled its hand back to find that its palm had been stained with a few strands of white cat hair. The most amazing thing was that these strands of cat hair actually had the miraculous effect of condensing the spirit energy of heaven and earth. It was even more F***king effective than a high-level spirit gathering array. Just like that, from that day on, Zheng Tan's strength began to grow by leaps and bounds. In just one short month, it had actually reached the peak late golden core stage. As for Zheng Tan's operation this time, it had actually been premeditated. In this month, apart from cultivating, Zheng Tan had also learned from stray cats about a secret stronghold suspected to be Shadow Stream's headquarters. At that time, Zheng Tan had been thinking about this attack. Just yesterday, Zheng Tan had received news that the Shadow Stream girl had escaped from prison. At that time, Zheng Tan had felt that its chance had come. Zheng Tan had decided to take advantage of the fact that this girl was still on her way to seek revenge on them to lead its army north and stab the enemy headquarters in the ass. Jinghua City, a neighboring city of Shanghai City. This was the capital of Huaxiao Nation. No one would have thought that Shadow Stream's current headquarters would be on an unremarkable hill on the outskirts of the capital. It seems that Ah Ying has already escaped successfully. The master of Shadow Stream, Jiang Luiyue, frowned as she sat in a high-back chair and watched news reports on the prison break. Any news of her? Tell her not to make any further moves, and to come back quickly, to avoid any more trouble. As she spoke, she turned her gaze to another figure next to her. It was an assassin in white with a golden armband and a dagger at his waist. His clothes were whiter than snow, and he looked like an immortal who had walked out of a painting. This person was called Emoli, and was one of Shadow Stream's gold-forged assassins. He was also their brains, and was stronger than Jiang Luiying. Don't worry, Lord. I've already sent someone to receive Miss Ah Ying. Emoli had a well-thought-out plan and calmly replied, It's just that Miss Ah Ying seems to still be a little indignant about what happened last time. After she shook off the prison guard's pursuit, she went to look for those cats to take revenge. Cat? Jiang Luiyue could vaguely sense that something was wrong. These cats clearly have very ordinary bloodlines, but their spiritual intelligence and realms are different from ordinary people's. They must have been taught by an expert. I think it's better not to provoke them. My lord, there's no need to worry. According to the information we've received, Miss Ah-ing seems to have barged into nothing, Emily replied softly. Barged in empty air? What do you mean? When Miss Ah-ing came to that area to search, she didn't find any traces of cats. The cats seemed to have evacuated in advance. Evacuate? Jiang Luyue frowned, feeling that things weren't as simple as they seemed. She didn't know why, but she had become very wary of cats recently, because not long ago, she had found a kitten that seemed to have lost its way near the top of the mountain. The strangest thing was that this mountain was a private, forbidden area, which had been set up with a magic array. Even birds would detour around this place when passing by, so how had that cat gotten in? Jiang Luyue pondered this deeply. This was the first time that Emily had seen Jiang Luyue so worried, and she couldn't help asking, "What are you worried about, my lord?" "I'm worried that those cats might be plotting something." "Plotting?" Emily laughed. "My lord, are you worried that those cats will find this place and attack the headquarters?" As soon as she said this, there was suddenly a tremendous explosion outside the hall. Where did that explosion come from? Emily tilted her head. A shadow stream killer swiftly turned into a black shadow and appeared in front of Jiang Luyue and Emily. "My lord, Lord Emily, the foot of the mountain is under fire." "Who's attacking the mountain?" Emily was shocked. "It's a large group of cats. A large group of cats is climbing the mountain. They're armed with heavy weapons, and there are tens of thousands of them. It seems they're going to attack the headquarters." Emily. For some reason, Emily's face hurt. Sure enough, there's something wrong with those cats. Jiang Luyue grit her teeth. It was clear that these tens of thousands of cats had come prepared to attack the mountain with heavy weapons. Furthermore, the number of killers in the headquarters was very limited, so once they came under fire, her image as the master of Shadow Stream would completely collapse in the killer world. Emily, immediately gather everyone to protect the headquarters, and during this period, don't come into contact with those cats. No matter what, we have to defend the headquarters. Yes, my lord, I'll arrange it right away. Emily immediately nodded. This time, he finally realized how serious the situation was. Outside the hall, Emily stood at the highest point and shook it lightly 3 times. Spirit light flashed in his hand, and a string of magic bells appeared. He recited a spell, and the magic bells started to vibrate rapidly. With him as the center, invisible sound waves spread out in all directions. Ringing the magic bells 3 times was Shadow Stream's highest level command to gather. 2 hours, can we hold out until then? Emily felt a little worried as he sensed the vigorous cat army charging up the mountain at the foot of the mountain. Zhang Tan's attack on the mountain this time was completely independent and hadn't been reported to the headquarters. In fact, in recent years, there had been countless cases of Shadow Stream killers abusing cats, and they had long since become enemies with cats all over the country. Cats all over Huaxiao Nation were also looking for Shadow Stream's headquarters, and had been trying to organize forces to launch an attack on it. Not long ago, the coordinates of Shadow Stream's headquarters had circulated among the cats, but they hadn't been verified yet, and all the cats were waiting for further confirmation from the headquarters. But no one had expected that before the headquarters had finished verifying the coordinates, Zhang Tan would actually make the first move. Zhang Tan's independent regiment was quite famous among the cat army led by the 3 cat tyrants, Tang Shi, Song Ci, and Yuan Chu. In the last few years, under the leadership of the 3 cat tyrants, the little tigers had been spread out all over the country, and had been secretly observing the movements of Shadow Stream killers everywhere. Thus, with Zhang Tan's attack on the mountain, all the stray cats in the nearby cities had been mobilized back then. Yuan Chu's capable cat General Li Yuanba had led the new cat army to catch a glimpse of Shadow Stream killers' movements. Li Yuanba's new cat army was in Dongbei City, which was above Jinghua City. At that moment, in an abandoned sewer in Dongbei City, a sturdy yellow short-tailed cat from the new cat army headquarters was looking at a map with 2 staff cats at its side. Currently, Shadow Stream killers in Dongbei City are gathering in a short period of time, and are trying to head for the capital, Jinghua City, said one of the cat staff officers. Li Yuanba. What mission are they carrying out this time? They probably aren't. They're anxious to get closer to Jinghua City, and aren't in the mood to fight. When they encounter a small disturbance from our cat army, they will quickly break away and take a detour. 2 days ago, Zheng Tan kept telling me that it was going to make big news. It looks like something big has happened. Li Yuanba narrowed its eyes and murmured softly. Otherwise, this bunch of Shadow Stream killers wouldn't be so desperate to get closer to Jinghua City. That guy's headquarters must be there. Cat Staff Officer. Does Commander think that Shadow Stream's headquarters has been attacked? Zheng Tin only has one independent regiment, and they dare attack the headquarters? Li Yuanba chuckled. Hee, why wouldn't they dare? There's nothing in this world that Zheng Tan doesn't dare to do. If it had 1 or 2 divisions, it would have King wiped out Shadow Stream long ago. Chapter 169. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Li Yuanba slapped its thigh with its thick cat paws. Pass on my order. The entire regiment is to assemble immediately. Use harassment tactics with 0 casualties, and do everything in your power to delay this group of Shadow Stream killers. We must delay them all before Zheng Tan officially attacks Shadow Stream's command center. Staff Officer Cat. Regiment Commander. Should we ask our superiors? The corner of Li Yuanba's mouth twitched. Ask for instructions? There's no time for that. Opportunities change in the blink of an eye and are fleeting. The old chief is so busy. Let's not disturb him. Rather than miss a good opportunity, it's better to attack decisively. Even if this group of people is going to offer birthday congratulations, we can't let them succeed. The cat staff officer was immediately speechless, because it seemed to already see the end. In fact, all the cats in the regiment could guess that, given the relationship between Li Yuanba and Zheng Tan, as long as Zheng Tan took action, even if it hadn't informed Li Yuanba beforehand, as long as Li Yuanba heard the news, it would definitely give its full support. This tacit understanding, which didn't require any words, was something that Zheng Tan and Li Yuanba had cultivated under the 3 cat tyrants back then. Common cats couldn't understand this ironclad tacit understanding and friendship at all. The cat staff officer next to Li Yuanba sighed in its heart. With Li Yuanba's attack, there would probably be a chain reaction among the stray cat regiments in nearby cities, and the stray cats in several cities would be thrown into chaos. Furthermore, was it really possible to achieve 0 casualties? Of course, Li Yuanba wasn't Zheng Tan's only hardcore brother. Everyone knew that the 3 cat tyrants Tang Shi, Song Ci and Yuan Chu had cultivated the 4 great guardian deities back then. Zheng Tan was a soldier under Thunderbolt Tiger Tang Shi. Li Yuanba was a soldier under Obedient Tiger Yuan Chu, and the last little handsome tiger, Song Ci, had cultivated the remaining 2 great guardian deities, Yunfei and Ahuang. Yunfei and Zheng Tan's fate had started with the color of their fur. They were both black cats. However, Yunfei's chest hair and the fur on all 4 feet were white, and it was a treading on snow cat. Some people said that Yunfei's breed was treading on snow on all 4s. Back then, Yunfei and Zheng Tan had trained and carried out missions together at night, and thus had established a deep relationship. Now, Zheng Tan had become the commander of an independent regiment, while Yunfei was also leading another regiment. Regiment number 358. This number had a special meaning for Yunfei. Back then, it had carried out exactly 358 missions with Zheng Tan. Yunfei's Regiment 358 was probably the closest geographically to Zheng Tan's independent regiment, as they were both in Songhai City. Zheng Tan found a tree hole to be the regiment's headquarters, while Yunfei found a shit-shoveling officer who was willing to do everything for it, and lived comfortably in the villa. This large villa was the headquarters of Yunfei's 358th Regiment. The neatly arranged cat house in the backyard of the villa belonged to Yunfei's subordinates. Of course, these cat houses had all been developed, just like Zheng Tan's tree hole. There were many different types of cat houses, such as those for the cavalry, those for the infantry, and those for the artillery. And Yunfei's own command center. After Zheng Tan had left Songhai City to launch an attack, and Li Yuanba had issued an order for reinforcements, Yunfei was the third person to realize this large-scale battle. In Regiment 358's headquarters, Yunfei was looking at a map. Which guy is so bold as to actually launch an independent battle? Yunfei's CAT staff officer. Based on recent operations, only Zheng Tan's independent regiment has been able to rally forces in a short period of time and arm themselves into the capital to launch an attack. Also, based on the location on the map, that place is Shadowstream's headquarters. Those coordinates were just a rumor at first, but I didn't expect Commander Zheng Tan to be one step ahead of us and launch an attack. Yunfei frowned and rubbed its face with its snow-white paws. That's not right either. Jinghua Dongbei Songhai, they're all at war. The entire South China CAT army is in chaos. This Zheng Tan is too bold. CAT staff officer. Commander, what should we do now? Yunfei. What else can we do? Of course we have to think of a way to stop the enemy reinforcements. Inform the artillery battalion to bring out all the latest weapons. Remember, those Shadowstream killers are quite ferocious. We just need to harass them as much as possible. Smoke grenades, flash grenades, noise grenades. Fire everything that needs to be fired. CAT staff officer. Ah, do we have to use that Lu Baobao brand flash grenade as well? Yunfei. Use it first. Afterwards, I'll have Zheng Tan reimburse me. Even if Zheng Tan isn't the one organizing the attack this time, my 358 regiment will still help out. CAT staff officer. Of the 4 great guardian deities, the last to receive the news was Ahuang. Ahuang was a yellow tiger, and it had been rather miserable when it had been born, having been castrated by its owner. Not long ago, it had even suffered from depression, and it was Zheng Tan who had helped Ahuang out of this psychological shadow, so it had a very deep friendship with Zheng Tan. Ahuang's new regiment was in southern Yen, between Jinghua and Songhai. When it received the battle report, Ahuang was drinking a little wine in the sewers. The chief of staff next to Ahuang reported the situation with a solemn expression on his face. We've just received word from our friendly forces liaison officer that Li Yuanba's new cat army, as well as some local stray cat organizations, have all joined the battle. Ahuang. Chief of staff. Even Yunfei's 358 regiment is muddle-headed. They haven't received any instructions from their chief, and have no idea what's going on. Ahuang. Ha 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 ha. It must be that guy Zheng Tan. That guy is King stirring up trouble again. Chief of staff. Does Commander think Commander Zheng Tan is making a move? The coordinates of that place seem to have only recently been confirmed to be Shadowstream's headquarters. The chief hasn't given any instructions yet, but that guy is actually making a move ahead of time? Who knows what that guy is thinking? Its independent regiment has a grudge with Shadowstream to begin with. Maybe it's trying to gain the initiative by striking first. Ahuang wagged its tail and chuckled. I've been mobilized by this guy's attack. It's even more awesome than the chief. In an apartment in downtown Jinghua, the bureau chief cat Thunderbolt Tiger Tang sure was on the phone. So angry that its fur was standing on end. What the hell is going on? If you don't even know what's going on, then what are you doing? Is your head made of a chamber pot? Obedient Tiger Yuanxiu pressed its hands on the table with a pained expression. What's going on? Why did they all start fighting without even reporting to each other? Who's commanding the battle? K. They should have at least played a game before fighting. Who can tell me what the hell is going on? Omnipotent immortal meow. If only you were here. Song Si heaved a helpless sigh. As soon as it said this, there was a flash of spirit light, and a cloud of smoke in the apartment, and a snow-white Persian cat appeared in front of the 3 cat tyrants. Wang Ling, who had transformed into a white Persian cat, floated in the air. The moment it saw the 3 cat tyrants, it heaved a slight sigh of relief. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.